sound absolutely disgusting. Like,
What?
well, no, like, you know how you hear yourself talk and you're like, I can't believe I sound like that. I must
Okay.
sound super
In,
annoying.
in your head, are you higher pitched or lower pitched?
In my head, I sound a little bit on the higher end, and then when I hear my recording, I swear to God, I sound like very, is it alto? Like very low. And I'm just like, oh.
That's the opposite of me. I always hear myself and I'm like, that like deep, beautiful resonance of how I usually
Yeah.
speak is totally lost.
So,
Like,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, makes
Well,
me sick.
I have two sisters, I guess three, but the two sisters that were like closely related because they're blood related, like I sound exactly like them. So when I hear myself, I'm like, I sound like my sister. Like, ugh. So, okay. So I'm gonna start right now. So
Okay.
hi, thank you for tuning in. My name is Pooja and welcome to my channel. I am super excited to start a new series called Pooja Talks To, which is going to be a mentor-forward video interview of scientists within our community. Today I'll be interviewing a good friend of mine, Justine. Justine and I are both in the same graduate program, and she is currently in the Nevada Geodetic Lab at the Nevada Bureau of Mines and Geology. So without taking up too much time, Justine, I'm going to give you the floor. If you could go over some of your experiences and some hobbies and just tell us about yourself a little bit.
Okay. Well, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in geophysics in 2012 from the University of Nevada, Reno, where I'm currently getting my PhD in geophysics, hopefully by the end of this year. Let's see, as an undergrad, I worked at the seismology lab. I also worked a few other jobs within geoscience as an undergrad too. I worked as an undergraduate TA, and I would TA at Rocks for Jocks basically, and I did a little bit of sedimentology and stratigraphy as well. And then
Just
I
to cut you
also,
off for their viewers, rocks for jocks is our slang term for intro to geology. So people know that.
Geology 101, I should have said that. But I would basically help the actual like graduate TAs with, proctoring their labs. And if we went and did some field work, I would go out there and hopefully be of use to students. When I was working in the seismology lab, I worked with Dr. Annie Kell, and well, at the time she wasn't a doctor. She was working on her research was focusing on geothermal, basically near Pyramid Lake, and I kind of tried to help do some seismic velocity profile picking and things like that when I was an undergrad, but might have been a little beyond me until later. And let's see, as an undergrad, I also participated in the SAGE program, which is the Summer of Applied Geophysical Experience, which is a program from Los Alamos National Laboratory that's been running for over 30 years. And it is probably one of the best applied geophysics like field camps you could go to. So that was a really fantastic experience too. And then after I graduated in 2012, I worked a short internship in Reno for a mining development firm. And then I got hired to Schlumberger, specifically their Western GECO segment. And I worked on a seismic ship all over the world doing seismic, like oil and gas exploration.
Can you repeat that company again?
Schlumberger. I can spell it out for you.
I thought it was Schlumberger.
Schlumberger. They were French. It's a French company. I technically worked for Western GECO, which was their like offshore like seismic acquisition and processing group. And I worked as a field geophysicist, which is basically an onboard processor. But I basically got to process seismic data and heave it back to the clients or the office so that they could do more thorough interpretation. So that was exciting for as long as it lasted, until an oil downturn kind of laid off half the fleet. And then after that, I ended up working as a geophysical tech for an electromagnetic group in Reno called ZONG. And also before that, SJ Geophysics, which is another electromagnetic geophysical group. And those were both, well, I worked in lithium exploration and I worked in some gold and some oil and gas too with them in my brief time there. So then I applied to grad school because I had a bachelor's in geophysics, which the market at the time was flooded with people who had masters and PhDs. So when I would apply for companies, I was still competitive because of my experience, but without that extra degree, people were saying, "Hey, we like you, but this person has a PhD or this person has a master's," and I was starting to realize that maybe I should up my game a little. So then I applied to UNR again because this is where my family is, and this is where my husband lives, and I didn't want to relocate us all. So I applied only to UNR. I got in, and then the process of who I chose to work with was a little more complicated, but I regret nothing, and hopefully I'll be done soon.
That's awesome. And I think, and again, for my viewers, the reason why I chose Justine and also as my first is to, again, the whole point of the series is to get experiences from professionals and people in academia and people that I personally see as very successful within their career field. So what I learned about Justine, meaning like when I came in and got to know you, I thought it was really cool what like the amount of experience that you've had, and my mind is blown because a lot of people and that's also why I wanted to interview you. So hopefully out of this, we can get some of your experiences, and if you could provide insight for those who are just starting out, those that are in Rocks for Jocks, if you want to say it that way. Secrets from the pros. I consider you a pro. I don't know if other people consider you a pro. Just things that point out that are obvious, and for me in geology, I think it was just like a lot of things were obvious, like the emails and reaching out to professors and applying, but like it was also not so obvious, and it's really discouraging when you go through that. And then also give you a platform to address current or ongoing issues. Again, being so experienced, I think this will be a great way to let people know that. So let's start. So is geology something you always wanted to do growing up? How did you navigate that? And then I guess for our viewers too, can you, I guess, walk us through how you knew you wanted to be in geophysics?
That's a very good question. So my parents would take us on summer vacations when they could, and they would typically like revolve around national parks and like all of the cool volcanoes. And so that was something that like when you're out there in the wilderness or in a national park and there are fumaroles or you're walking through a lava tube, it's kind of like, wait, these are kind of cool. And like people get paid to like come here.
Yeah, people get paid to do this.
It's crazy. So when I was 15, okay, I have to digress. So I have a little bit of an unconventional like adolescence.
No, say
so kindergarten through fifth grade, I was in public school, and the public school in our neighborhood was kind of in a rough part of town, but that's where we went, and it was very diverse, and it was really, you make the most of it. And I had a good experience, but for middle school, my parents decided to pull us out of public school, like me and my two siblings, my brother and sister, who are older than me. And they decided to pull us out of public school and homeschool us, which there are some pluses and minuses to that. I didn't enjoy my experience as much as maybe my siblings did. But by the time I was 14, they put us into community college.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah, it's like a little strange for a high schooler to be in college.
No, I wasn't. So it's insane at 14. I did something in high school that I recommend for everyone. I have this whole thing against APs because I think APs are a scam. But what I did in high school was I got through my credits pretty quickly. And I think, with math and writing, and I did the summer classes. So my senior year, I was basically part-time at the high school, and I did something called dual enrollment at the community college. And I I'm telling you right now, that's how I found out that AP was a scam. Because with APs, you take, you take the exam at the end of the year, you pay for it, but you have to get like a 4 or 5, or like you have to pass the exam to get credit. Whereas if you go to community college, all you have to do is get a C. Like that's all. And so, sorry, I
No, you're good. Like
community
the
college is
more we
awesome.
can promote community college,
Yeah,
the better.
the better. So yeah, I did that. I did something called dual enrollment. If you're a high school student that's watching this, like AP's a scam. But yeah, continue about your for being
Oh,
14 at a
okay.
community.
Yeah, I was 14 when I took my first class at community college, which was business. I did not take um, my first few semesters were like business, and I took Spanish. And my siblings are 2 years older than me, so I was kind of trailing behind them and like their footsteps, basically. Like, oh, they took a science course. I guess I'll take a science course since I'm about the same age or whatever, like. Um, so when I was 15, like a whole year later, when I was 15, I took my first science course, which was physical science. And I had never really taken a science course.
Wait, so outside of homeschooling, you've never taken a science course,
Not like
and
the
then
most science that I was exposed to, like through actual curriculum, was like in fifth grade. I remember like we planted bean sprouts or something in our college, like it's
so,
not even our classroom rather.
and not to backtrack, but is it like your parents were not for teaching science in the home, or was it the curriculum that was the homeschooling curriculum that you bought online or bought at
So
internet doesn't
my
exist
parents
or something yet?
love science. They like we would watch space shuttle launches and homeschooling, and before homeschooling, we would do all these things. And when we'd go to these national parks, we'd read up all about things. We had like passes to like the Lawrence Hall of Science, and we had passes to the Lindsay Museum, which was kind of like this animal rehabilitation center. So like we would go informally to all these places that had science, but as far as schooling went, when I was homeschooled, you'd get like a workbook. And there's nothing exciting about a workbook, and I found that I could blow off a lot of the work I was supposed to be doing, without like any real. This is probably not flattering for my parents, but like I was kind of a slacker as a homeschooled kid, and I was a bit uninspired. So my first actual science course, and by the way, okay, so they say, at least now, that like they teach geology in like fourth grade. I didn't get geology in fourth grade.
Me either. My first exposure to I got earth science, but it was like weather and atmospheres, climates, all of it together. All the natural sciences were together. And then I didn't get exposed to geology until my high school offered an astronomy class every other year. I took that, was really fascinated by like how planets were formed and stuff. And then, yeah, and then, I mean, like besides the St. Louis Science Museum, and then, yeah, my first exposure to geology was in college, my sophomore year.
Yep.
It was, yeah. Okay, so sorry. Continue your
No, you're
physical
good. I
science class.
love like hearing like that I'm not alone in the universe. So basically, like we had a weather station at our house. Like that was like, ooh, we're doing science, That was kind of how it was for my like earlier years. When I turned 15, however, I signed up for physical science, which of course covered biology and chemistry and physics and like small pieces. And it also covered geology. So it turns out that earlier that year, my family had gone on a vacation to Hawaii, and we went to the Big Island, and that was the first time I ever walked through a lava tube, and I was like, yeah, this is like the best thing ever.
I love hearing stories about Hawaii because, so for those who don't know on my channel, my research is studying Hawaiian basalts, but I've never been to Hawaii, and it's really taxing because with COVID we were supposed to travel and now we're not. But no, tell me more about the Hawaiian basalts.
Well, they're okay. So like that was pretty freaking lucky on our part.
Wait,
Like
have you been to lava beds?
I have
Oh,
after Hawaii.
lava lava beds national park is the freaking coolest fucking thing.
Okay, it is. But also, I have not been to Craters of the Moon. And I just found out yesterday, this is totally an aside.
So what's Craters of the Moon?
It's in Idaho. Okay, you know how the Yellowstone hotspot like migrated?
Yeah.
Well, that track is basically Craters of the Moon.
So what are they just remnant like calderas or?
Just basically lava hotspot remnant things. Just, I guess calderas would be accurate, but I don't actually know if there are calderas still there.
No, I'm just wondering, like, why would, because I'm thinking cratering, but like you know, the only thing that's volcanic that's cratering it would be a caldera.
They call it Craters of the Moon, I think, because the surface of the like landscape is just so barren and destroyed by volcanism that it looks to them like the moon would. So
right. Oh, okay.
But I haven't been, so like I can't tell you too much. But I found out yesterday during our thing that Kurt Krall has also not been. So I'm pretty sure we should just get a group together and
do like a caravan where we just like go around. Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. You know, like why not? We're geo people.
I was wondering because I did an Oregon trip, sidetrack. Sorry, this is a good thing we have.
No, this is fine. Don't worry.
And for those wondering, I do have a script aside just so we stay on track, but this is okay. But no, I did a whole 10-day camping trip, and I went to basically Northern California, and I did the Oregon coast up until, but right before Portland, rendezvoused like at Bend as my like pit stop, which was basically a beercation, and where I could take a shower, and like freshen up from 5 days of like stank. And then what made my way to Crater Lake, which Crater Lake is beautiful, but I don't know if I was overwhelmed or underwhelmed or just whelmed. I don't know what it was, because my experience at Lava Beds National Park in Northern California was significantly better than at Crater Lake. And I was just like, this should it like, you know, I thought it'd be the opposite, but no.
That's how I felt at Crater Lake too. I'm like, and it's a beautiful lake.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And I didn't know there was a fishery there. You know, a lot of the history about, you know, it's native lands and there is a fishery actively there so you can fish, and that you can actually go to the water. They didn't have it because it was COVID, but you could actually go down to the water. I didn't know that. And the visitor is just like, I think it's because I went during COVID that my experience was kind of meh. And also I didn't know that the Pacific Rim Trail went through Crater Lake. So, you know, I think I might plan better. But yeah, it was just weird to reflect on that and be like, my experience at Lava Beds was 100% better, 100 times better than Crater Lake. So for those watching, go to Lava Beds before you go to Crater Lake, because that shit is awesome. And so I heard October and April are the best times to go, because October it's a little bit cooler and you have to deal with like the barren landscape, and then in April you just get all the snow melt, so you get these weird streams and aquatic settings inside the caves at Lava Bed. So it's really cool to see that, and the snow structures and icicles. So I've been told by the park rangers that's a really good time to go. It's like April, like springtime. Camping sucks though, because you're dealing with like, you know, 10 single digit sleeping conditions. But I went at the dead of summer. It was like 100-degree day, but I thought that was better because you're out in the surface and it's 100 degrees and it's barren and you're like dying, and you go in the caves and it's basically the AC like is turned on and you're like, oh, and it was so fun. It was just so fun.
There was ice there when I went in summer still.
Oh, okay. I didn't see any ice.
I don't remember what time of year that was.
I went in August, so I think, you know, probably all the ice melted. I can imagine June, like there's probably still ice, or July. July might be pushing it.
I don't remember what month it was, but it was summer.
Yeah, but I just didn't know that Northern California and Southern Oregon, between Crater Lake and Lava Beds, is all old calderas that people are
How
like,
did you
I
not know
know.
this? Oh well, I know
I'm
how
a
you
terrible
know.
geologist.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
It's just
you just don't know
every
these things.
geologist needs to travel, right?
Yeah,
So like you're just doing what you
yeah.
need to do.
Okay, so you've taken geology at your community
No,
college and
physical science.
physical science.
So I went to sorry, I went to Hawaii, crawled around in lava tubes, went, this is great. Like we should come back. We did not go back. It's okay, but we didn't go back. I was very sad. But then the physical science like semester report came up and you were supposed to pick like a chapter to do your topic, like as your topic. And I picked the rock cycle because I was like, I get to talk about volcanoes. I get to like talk about lava tubes. I have pictures of me in lava tubes. And I got like super excited. And this is what, 2005 probably. So like everyone, no, like our community college didn't have like a lot of uh, high-end equipment. So I just had like a poster board and flashcards, and I gave my super nerdy presentation on the rock cycle. And that was how that started. I was like, this is great. And like things can change from like one state of matter into another state of matter and still be rocks. Like that's cool. So that's kind of what like got me interested. And then
Metamorphic features are by far the coolest features. Like driving through Colorado. Okay, I appreciate a giant igneous, phenocryst type dike system, where you have these beautiful crystals. But and this is just me driving through Colorado, you get a bunch of like schist rocks exposed, and it's just tiger stripes all on the side of the road. And it's just like you're just sitting at the window just looking, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Well, when you're a geologist, you know what happened. You're like, wow, look at all that pressure that was exerted on this bedrock before. I like,
okay, so I have a story for that, but like this was like my first. Okay, I can get to that later, but you know what? I'll just tell you now. So like in my SED class, which was the first semester at UNR that I actually took geology classes. Like, yes, it
wait, so
was
when did
tough.
you join UNR? Did you finish community
Okay,
college?
I'm like skipping a lot. I'm so sorry. So I transferred. Gosh, there's a whole bunch of like story to this, but I transferred from Los Medanos College, my community college, to UNR in January 2009. And my first set of geology classes was fall 2009.
I'm muted. Sorry, you did 4 years at community college.
Yes, yeah.
So you basically got a degree.
No, I didn't get a single degree. So, okay, here's basically what happened. Until I was probably 16, I was taking only a couple classes because once you got over 12 credits, then you had to start paying like real money. And so when I was 16, I started taking like full loads.
Sorry to interrupt and sidetrack. And for our viewers, if you are part-time in college, you can get out of a lot of things.
True.
Yeah.
And when you're under 18, I think, or whatever it is at community college, you usually need a waiver. So it was more paperwork to be full-time than part-time. And my parents were also putting my, older siblings through, so it cost more money. And at the time, credits cost $20 a credit. I'm
That's
just like,
unreal.
as a student now, I'm just like, why didn't I stay there forever? Like, this is the cheapest it ever will be.
I can feasibly afford every credit hour on my monthly stipend from geology. Yeah.
I know, that would have been amazing. But okay, so I did not get any degrees because for the first couple years I was like slow, and then the rest of the time, by the time I finally realized, wait, I should be like plotting my future out instead of just taking every science course, which is kind of what happened after physical science. I was like, I'm taking biology, I'm going to take chemistry, and then not just Gen Chem, like the first earliest chem, then Gen Chem 1. And then I finally took my first honest to God geology course in 2008. That's how, like, they did not offer it
Wow.
until 2008. And that was only because a delightful master's graduate, Justin Peterson, came to our sad and lonely like community college from Santa Cruz. And he was awesome. Like, he was actually a geologist.
So
And
you had a geologist come over, and that's how you got, like, you knew, like, okay, this is how I
because
can.
like if they had never hired like any geologists, then I would not have been exposed to it until like, I don't know, like you and I probably, which
Or
is a
even
lot.
never, maybe. You don't know.
Yeah. So here's the thing though, because I'm a very stubborn person. Even before the first geology course came up, I had decided by the time I was like probably 16
Jesus.
that, yeah, I was like, I'm going to be a geophysicist.
Smoking pot in, like, playgrounds, like.
I did not do any of that. I was very straight edge.
Oh,
Now I
man.
survive a little but yeah, so like at 16, I was like, I'm gonna be a geophysicist because they get to study volcanoes and I want to study volcanoes. And they get to work outside, which I would probably go crazy if I had to stay inside.
So what about geophysics? Like, how would you distinguish between geophysics and geology? Or
Okay,
was it just geophysics for you?
so my dad especially was really pressuring the three of us to become engineers. He
Okay.
really 100% gotta be an engineer. That's 100%. Was he an engineer? Absolutely not. But we had to be engineers. And so as like teenagers, we were taking math courses. And my parents, I don't think they ever got out of Calc 1. Like they didn't, it wasn't what interested them. So we were taking math courses and I was kind of behind in math. The first, I think it was the first year I went to community college, I took like remedial math. I took pre-algebra because I did not know how to do percents properly. And I did not know how to like do just any of the basic math that most people do in their head now. So I had to literally start from like the ground floor. And I just kept taking math courses after math courses because I was waiting for the point where it would be too difficult for me to continue. And that was the metric I was going for because my parents were both like, look, we got to calculus. It wasn't our cup of tea. We stopped doing math. And I was like, okay, I will do math until I can no longer do math. And then by the time I was like, 17 or something, probably a little later, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, by the time I was in my later teens, I was like, look, I've already taken up to Calc 2. Like, why would I be a geologist when I can do the math? Like, I don't want to just waste the math that I've learned because I know I can do it, like it was a little probably insane, but.
So that's how you chose geophysics, essentially.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yes. I just basically, I knew I could do the math. It was just a question of like the next step. If I could do the math, hypothetically, then I could be a geophysicist. And I wasn't sure up until I got through, into calculus that I would even have that aptitude. Right.
It's funny because like the way I got into geophysics, and we talked about this earlier before we started recording, but like for those reviewing, I'm technically a geophysicist. I just don't identify or feel a part. And maybe it's just the way that we, when I think of geophysics, I think seismologist, and I technically do geothermal, but I don't know how to describe it. But anyway, I defaulted into geophysics because when I went to my undergrad, I thought studying astrophysics was the way that you got into studying planets, which is wrong. And so I was basically doing the physics degree in my undergraduate, which is University of Colorado at Boulder, and obviously didn't fit in and went to geology. And now it's a whole story. But anyway, so I ended up I took 2 years of physics, which includes physics 1 to, classical mechanics, electricity, magnetism, and then quantum mechanics. And then I did all the way up to differential equations and linear algebra, failed that twice. But like, I think that's what it was. And then by that time I was in the geology department, and I met all the requirements for the geophysics track for our degree. And so I just defaulted into the geophysics like bracket. And I was like, I guess I'm here.
Whatever it takes to get one more awesome geophysicist like you. So like, I make it sound like I just kind of did the math and that's how I went. But in reality, I had already had like chosen geophysics. I just wasn't sure if I could get there with my math skills. Which is complete garbage because I totally did. And if I'd had that confidence in myself, I never would have had that doubt. And that is something that I carried through me my entire undergrad, which is just such a shame because, like, it's so easy to stigmatize math, and like say you're not good at it. But if you are even halfway competent, you're probably good at it, Like,
for me with math, it's just understanding the theory and like I'm trying to think the inference behind it. I say inference, and I feel like that's the wrong term for it. Like the intuitiveness with math.
It's magic,
right? The magic behind it, and then like the intuitiveness with mathematical principles. The same thing with physics, right? It's just the intuition, right? And so, and then to get good at it, meaning to get good grades and to pass the exam, it's just practice, practice, practice. But really, in essence, to be good at math and physics, like just inherently and apply that to your either research or your job, it's to just know the intuition. And for me, like I was on the intuition side, right? None of that stuff ever like went over my head. It was just doing the problems. And I think I'm just a procrastinator in general, and I'm a little bit on the lazier end. I can't crank out 20. If it's going to take me 3 hours to do 20 problems, I'm going to be like, nah, I'm okay.
I lived in the math lab. That's how I did it. I like spent over 100 hours a semester in
but like
math.
I know how linear, when we talk about linear algebra, I understand how matrix manipulation works, and I understand how that can be applied in my work. But when it comes down to actually doing a matrix manipulation through linear algebra, I'm just like, no, I'm okay. So yeah, no, I totally get it.
So the other reason that I chose geophysics was because I was kind of like on the fence there for a little bit between geophysics and geochemistry, because I really loved my chem classes and my chem professors at undergrad or like at community college. And I really loved it, but I was struggling with chemistry even as much as I loved it. And this was around the time that I learned I had a learning disability, because I would take these tests in the class with everyone else. And I would be like, I swear to God, I wrote that in order. I know how to do this. I have practiced all of these like equations. I knew what I was doing. And I'd get the test back and I'd look at it and I'd be like, how did that happen? These things are out of order. Like I was like flipping things that should not have been flipped because I was not processing as fast as I needed to be. So
I resonate with that so much, because I learned that I had like slight dyslexia from getting into an argument with my geochemistry professor. She's like, it's lead. And I was like, no, it's not lead. It's some other element. And we got into a 5-minute fight. And she was like, Pooja, look at the paper. What element is that? And I was just sitting there like, and I was like, oh my God. And it happened a lot, and it happens with my research. Like I'd label a sample, and when my advisor will look at my sample and be like, no, it was supposed to be 359, not, 368 or something. And I'm just like, I swear I labeled it right. In your head, you think you label it right. And then, when other people look at it, they're like, are you okay? Like,
so it's so annoying.
It's so annoying. And it's hard because it's weird, because it's like you no one calls you out when you're in elementary school, and maybe they do it better now, and we can go on a whole subject like that, but like it took me until I took sciences and like put myself out there, to learn that like, oh shit, maybe that's why like my confidence level when I was young was a little bit low because no one was there to support, you know what I mean? Get out.
Yeah.
Sorry, we should continue with the conversation. So,
Well,
like, obviously, you're figuring out what you want to do. Maybe go over the resources and stuff that were helpful for you. Sorry, keep going.
so okay, resources and stuff that were helpful. Um, I went to like a aptitude placement thing in community college, which showed me that rocks are cool and that would like I already knew about rocks at that point, but they told me basically that like yeah, geology does exist and here are like things you can do with it.
Sorry, I just want to confirm so we're on track. So you go through community college, you meet a geologist, you know that you want to do geophysics by, the math and the stuff that you've taken before. And so now you just apply for this job aptitude test, like.
Oh no, like you could just walk into their job center on community college and just be like, hey, like I don't know like what to study, what can I be good at? And I never had that type of thing before because I didn't go to high school. So like I didn't have a counselor to meet with or any of that. So
high school counselors are trash.
oh,
they don't do that.
Oh, I've heard. But I never had to deal with that. I
Yeah.
just basically went in and took a test and they're like, yeah, you seem to like outdoor work. So like geology.
Yeah. Well, I can't speak to other high school counselors, but I did not have a high school counselor that did any of that. They were like, your grades look good, you're on track to graduate. Are you going to college? Let me help you get into college. That was it. There was no, what do you want to do? More. And I mean, they're not paid enough to do this, but like the proactiveness in my public school was not there.
Yeah, I had to be proactive to do this at community college. So that's always something important. So probably the math center that I went to was really useful. Like I said, I lived there for like years. So every semester I'd book at least like 85 hours in the math lab because I was having to teach it to myself for a lot of those like
was it lack of good professors in your community college?
My Calc 1 professor was garbage. He actually had a mutiny in one of his classes where people were like, you're just like, because what happened was he would like, before you even got to class, he would show up early, write everything down in his notes on the whiteboard. I guess it was a chalkboard, on the chalkboard. And then he would like point at it. And as you were madly scrambling and writing, he would start erasing it. So you never got complete notes. And this was before like cell phones were decent. So you couldn't just like take a picture.
Before you could record your lecture on Zoom.
Yeah. So basically he was awful. And the only way I was able to learn calculus was I had my textbook and I bought the answer book. And then I would work backwards from the answers to, figure out how the hell they did anything.
Our viewers are like, why didn't you use Chegg? This is like before. I mean, we had the internet, but it wasn't like Chegg did not exist. Chegg did not exist until I was like a sophomore in college, and I learned about it, and I was like, wow.
I think I started using that probably in like 2000. Well, Chegg not so much, but like
Khan Academy was a big one for us.
Wolfram was like something.
Wolfram Alpha, yeah. Wolfram Alpha, Khan Academy. People were like, the Gen Zers, why didn't you just go on Google? And it's like, it didn't exist.
I mean, Google existed, but like it wasn't good for like searching math problems.
No, you couldn't copy and paste your homework problem and get like 3,000 pages of like potentially worked out problems.
I wish that was like the case.
I wish that was a thing.
Yeah, so that was good. So the other thing was when I guess it was when I was 17, I got accepted into the community college honors program.
Wow.
Which my siblings were already part of, so I would kind of like sneak in.
Like, you're a legacy.
Well, no, I mean, I earned my way, but like I was already hanging out there just because like that's where my siblings would be.
Right.
And they had like it was like a hangout cube, or what's it called? Like a portable. It was like 2 different rooms on like a mobile like thing outside. So I joined the honors program, and that was where I started finding more like-minded, like scientifically oriented students. because the whole time I was in community college before that, I would basically try to hide that I was smart. And because I didn't want to like out myself as being like that like 14-year-old like in classes,
Ugh,
I would
that's
just be
so
like,
shitty. That's such a shitty feeling.
but like it's a thing though. Like my siblings, they did the exact opposite. They were like, "Well, we're 16 and we're in these classes, and you have 25-year-olds or 40-year-olds coming back," and like I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be like an outsider.
Right.
So when I was finally in the honors program, I found that there were more students who were taking these science courses, and that was really helpful. And the leader of the program, Jennifer Saito, was actually she was a math professor. So, dun dun dun, like woman in STEM leading a whole ragtag group of like awkward people. It was kind of inspiring. So that was important. And then when we did, like, they upgraded our campus. And when they finally had like new buildings and new centers, and they like put in an actual honest to God science building, like then there was another place for all the people taking chemistry and science to hang out. And that's basically I would go to my pods of people when I was stuck and just be able to ask for help without feeling
Right.
awkward.
So in your community college, you had the career resources people that helped you figure out that you should probably pursue geology. The honors program where you have some sort of sense of community,
Yeah.
right? You're not afraid to be yourself. And then, representation, obviously, seeing another woman in a field, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. But what
Mm-hmm.
about like, I hear you having all these jobs in the industry. Like, how did you do that? Well, because I was a geologist when I went into the geology program, it was hard for me to navigate one, not only what I wanted to do, but like how to get experience. And for me, it was like I didn't, Indeed.com was like the the one place I went to, and I realized that's like not the best, right? To just apply for jobs. I didn't know how to network and stuff. But like, how did you navigate? Did you go into was it UNR, got your undergrad, and then went into industry? And like, I guess.
So when I worked was at community college, I worked as a Spanish tutor, and I taught Spanish for 2 years. So I had some teaching experience. And then when I came to UNR, I was thinking, oh, I'll just be a Spanish tutor again. But no, apparently, if you did not learn Spanish at UNR, they would not consider you as a like capable tutor, despite my like years of experience. So the first year I didn't work. I was just trying to. I was like a mid-year transfer. There's a whole backstory that was just got a little sticky. But I was a mid-year transfer. I came in January. I had like no friends. I didn't know anybody. And what I did was I joined the Mackey Rockhounds, which is the AIPG student chapter of the American. Oh no, I forgot. AIPG.
I was gonna say I don't know.
I think it's the American
AAPG maybe.
Just give me a second. I know words. I'm good at words. American Institute of Professional Geologists. I was just like tripping up on the I. Like, why would there be an I there? Anyway, I joined AIPG, the student chapter, and I met people who liked rocks. And that was a good like icebreaker for getting involved in geoscience, even though at the time I transferred, I came in on the 2000, oh gosh, what year was this? 2008, 2009 program. And in 2008, 2009, like you were required to do all of the chemistry, you were required to do all the physics. That changed on the 2009, 2010 like handbook basically for undergrad. So I hadn't taken any geology except for 101 in community college. So that was kind of, it was a little different because I'd taken things, but I still didn't know anyone. So So that was a good icebreaker into the geology group before I was able to take any geology classes. And I'm still a member of AIPG. I stayed with them my whole undergrad. I ended up being president for my junior year. Okay, there are stories there, but the point was that sometimes you end up in a position where if you really like something, sometimes you have to step up and lead. And when it came down to becoming president, uh, we showed up. There were like 4 of us that showed up for the elections that day, and we were the only people that showed up. And all of the people who were already officers were graduating. So it was either we take the role or the club shuts down.
Yeah, the club dissolves, and I feel like that's a lot of it's a sad reality of a lot of university clubs.
It is the worst. There is no more thankless task than being a student leader at a club. And I never learned that apparently because I am still the student leader of a club. But basically what happened.
I mean, even in grad school, we're dealing with that. And it's just like,
it's amazing how like people, they want all of the perks that come with being in a club, but they don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And it's just like, look, these things, they take effort. And when I became president of the Rockhounds way back, they was in dire straits because they'd fallen out of, there was some tricky treasury problems. They'd fallen out of favor with ASUN. So they couldn't get any money from them. They had not worked with AIPG. Like you'd think that would be like obvious, right? But like they didn't. So they were broke as well as basically folding. So,
and again, it's a sad reality. Any club and any department, any student group, it's honestly sad. But honestly, I commend people like you and me and everyone else that takes on these roles, because and hopefully when people see this, they'll appreciate a little bit more when a club does something and it's impactful, or you benefit from the free pizza on Friday. Like, know that there are people that are doing the work that other people that benefit are not willing to do, and they put in hours and hours.
So the first step that we took was we needed money. So we actually got into good standing with ASUN, which was important. And then we actually contacted AIPG, and they were like, yeah, we haven't had like a report submitted by you in like years. So by actually talking to them, they were like, hey, do you want like 10 grand for your club over the next 5 years? And the answer was, of course, yes. Like people are willing to help you if you're willing to try. And we were able to set up donations, like mineral donations from professional geologists that had passed away. And then we were able to hold massive mineral sales on dead day and things like that actually got us money. And with money, you can do things. And when you're doing things, you get more people interested. And when you get more people interested, you have more community building. And there's all of these good things that happen, but you have to actually do the work. So, that's
so being a part of this club, were you able to network, or was that help? Did that help you gain all these other industry jobs, or was it other things?
So I would say there were more resources that I used than just AIPG. AIPG was good for making some outside connections. There was a mixer basically in December where the students would be invited to attend these regional things for free. But
and is it just collecting business cards and then reaching out, or
nobody teaches you how to network,
right?
And if you're just dropped into this and you're 20 and you're trying to show you're a grown-up, it doesn't always work.
If you're I think networking works for very few people. It's people that are extroverted and know how to sell themselves. And if you
None of those
don't have
things you have without a degree, basically.
without a degree, but also like I think extroverted, right, is just a personality trait. So, when you're extroverted, you kind of gain that skill based on your life. And then, and then for me, it's like I was extroverted, but I had no skill, like meaning nothing to advertise. I was like, I'm an outgoing person and I love work. I have good work ethic. I'm interested in these things. I'm passionate about, research. But then, at the end of the day, it would fall through. I would make it to the second or third interview, but at the end of the day, it's like we're gonna prioritize the person that has life experience over the person that doesn't. I was just like, God
Yeah.
damn.
I am not that extroverted.
Yeah.
I would consider myself an extroverted introvert. So I would
Right.
get to these things and I would be like hanging out with the person I came with, if I could even go, because
Yeah.
I didn't have a car.
Right.
So like I would have to tag along with people, which was a problem. But I wouldn't know how to go talk to people.
Having a car is everything. You don't know it until you actually have to go to networking events.
Life and death right there. Like being able to actually travel.
The auto industry really got us on this one.
Well, okay, like Reno has some places you can't walk to,
Well, even in Reno, it's like the city doesn't have the incentive to do public transportation because of the population. But and that's how
I
auto
wouldn't want to
industry
take the bus from like campus to I think
you'd have to plan
like
2 hours
Ramada
ahead.
Inn or something.
I tried that.
On like 4th Street. You don't want to like walk there because that's a terrible idea. Those are not good neighborhoods. And especially not if you're like dressed up for a networking event. You don't want to draw attention to yourself as like a single female, like trying to go any places. Like there are some logistical
and Uber and Lyft did not exist.
No, not exist at all. And like you might be able to like catch a ride with a friend if you like coordinated that before, if they were going, if they were free, if they didn't have something else, but like it was still a problem. So networking events were not my strong suit. That is something I've definitely had to work on in the last 7 years, probably most specifically. As an undergrad, I was pretty terrible at it. And one of the things I did in Nevada was this is where things work out. So at UNR, Mackey School had a career coordinator and they had outreach people, and they did until COVID. So Katya Albright, who now works at the UNR Career Studio, go talk to her. She's amazing. She has been like such a like helpful person and like a phenomenal resource for me my whole career. Like even if I was an alumna, like I would just be like, hey Katya, I got laid off, and I'm between jobs. Like, can we like meet? Can we talk about things? And she was always helpful.
What did she provide? Like, these are a list of jobs, and I know like the recruiter. Like, how did that work?
Yes, but also before even you get there, before you even talk about recruiters, she helped me write my first resume.
Oh,
like things that you kind of take for granted once you've actually done like them out. But like I didn't have a resume. Like I didn't have like a legitimate way to sell myself to the geology community. I had, Spanish tutor, resident assistant, like these things that are useful, but not geology based at all. Yeah. So like she helped me compile my first resume, and she got me my first like job outside of college.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, basically this was how it happened. Okay. So I'm just gonna time out first. There's a little background I should give you.
Yeah.
So and it's one of your questions, so we're gonna keep on track. But you asked in your question set, were there any like difficulties that you had to overcome, like
what helped you or hindered you, be it cultural ability?
One of the major problems I had was I did not have money. I couldn't afford a car even if I wanted one. I was having trouble affording groceries. Like,
oh my God.
I became a resident assistant because I needed like a place to live and
I'm
like,
an RA too, dude.
yeah, like
I was an RA in Boulder, Colorado, where the average rent is $1,600 for 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Ridiculous. And I was
so,
like, I don't have that type of money. I'm gonna be an RA, and the Boulder gig was awesome. You got free housing and free dining.
yep.
And I was just like, so how's like literally a place to live and food to eat. And I was the type of person in the dining halls. I was cobbing bread. I took the peanut butter jar. I was like, I took Tupperware, and I was just like, like
On
I
Thanksgiving night, like I literally brought in gallon bags and I was like putting turkey in my gallon bags. Like that is the kind of like I definitely like stole food, not stole, but like people would eat and they would have leftovers and they'd be like, "Do you want this?" And I'd be like, "Yes." Or people would eat, say, "Do you want this?" Someone else would be like, "Yeah." And then they'd have leftovers and then I would get them third hand. Like I definitely like ate food
no,
out of the
I
garbage can. Like
I feel that. I was in the dining hall. Like I'm pretty sure like I got excommunicated, but no one ever followed through. But like, and I would even like um one of our dining halls we had a swipe thing where it was like 3 snacks and an entree. It was like a grab and go style, and I definitely stole. I was like, okay, I was trying to be healthy too, right? So like I can get a salad, which is an entree, and they're pretty small. Obviously all the healthy food is like small and tiny, and all the
yeah,
junk
of
food is like
course.
giant proportions. And so for me trying to be healthy, I was just like throwing apples in my like in my backpack.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was like, I can't use a meal swipe for 4 apples. Like I can't. So I'm gonna get all the big entrees for my meal swipe, and then like literally throw apples into. I'm like admitting to theft from
No,
this.
like I totally get it because
Yeah.
like I definitely took food out of garbage
Also,
cans.
University of Colorado Boulder, like they did not. Me stealing a few extra apples on the side was
Oh,
not like
no, like
no.
the DC,
Yeah.
they make hand over fist. Like I did not feel bad about my gallon bag filled with turkey at all. I was
Me
just like,
taking a
you
gallon
guys are
bag to
ripping
the
this
cereal
off.
machine and just like dumping cereal in a gallon bag. Yeah. And I
Yep.
peaked. I was an RA in apartment housing my last year. So I got my own apartment. Like, because it was upper class, it was technically upperclassmen, but they had freshmen there. And, you get one roommate that was an RA as well. But, we got a full size fridge. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to definitely take a ton of food. I basically did groceries with my meal swipe at the dining hall, and I cooked in my apartment. It was just amazing.
So I was an RA in Manzanita Hall, which is built in like
I don't know anything about that.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
1896 that building was open. It's the
Wow.
it's the second oldest residence hall on the west side of the Mississippi. The first being Lincoln Hall, which is at UNR as well. And it was the third building to open in UNR's campus. No air conditioning, communal bathrooms, but RAs got their own room.
Yeah, we had our own room and we had communal bathrooms until I got apartment housing, which was, the university apartment housing I was an RA in. Again, I peaked in my RA.
I only did it 1 year
And you got your own
because
bathroom and your own room and a kitchen and a living room. Oh man, I
nice.
was like, and a balcony too. I was rolling in that shit.
It was way too nice. I did not have air conditioning.
My first year, I was in Fair and Hall at UCU Boulder. It's one of the oldest buildings, like I'm pretty sure there was asbestos. There's mold growing in the showers. It was one of those. And the worst part was my first year RAing. I was a co-ed floor, but my room was on the men's side, like the boys' side. So when I opened my door was the men's bathroom right in front of me.
Nice.
And oh my God, I remember my first week moving in because the RAs, they move in 2 weeks before all the students get in. There was cockroaches everywhere. Oh man, I didn't shower for 3 days because I went to the bathroom and you see a little cockroach scurrying. I screamed. I was like, ah! And I just left and I was like, I'm just gonna wait till students get here to shower. Like, I just did not shower.
Oh my God, that's awful.
That's how phobic I am of bugs.
I mean, cockroaches are disgusting.
Yeah,
So yeah,
we had
don't
mold in the
blame you.
showers, like, yeah. And the
So,
okay, so sorry, let's get back on track.
Okay, so okay, Katya. I was talking about Katya.
Yeah.
She helped me write my first resume. I got a job with the Seismo Lab before I think I formalized my resume. So I had a version that I was using.
So the Seismo Lab, was it just like they were hiring and you applied and you got it?
Yes. So when I was working, or when I was a student, I worked with, or Wendy Calvin was my advisor, my counselor, I guess, not my advisor, because but she would help me pick out courses and stuff. So I was connected that way. And of course, John Louie is an amazing mentor and just a human in general. So I got wind that there was a job in the Seismo lab for an undergrad, and I applied. I don't remember how I applied. I remember my interview with Dr. Louie. I was so scared, like, because I hadn't taken any geophysics courses at that point because I like transferred. I was kind of out of order in some things, so I took structure 333, which is the geophysics based one, before I took basic structure, which is a little more complicated to like do these out of order. But I remember interviewing with him and I got the job somehow. And then everything else after that was like, okay, now I have this job. And I'm also taking an RA job because food is good. And at that point in 2009, in the spring, I had a meal plan. It cost a fortune. Like, it cost so much money. And I only realized after the deadline that I could have like downgraded it so that I could have saved money instead of spending all my money on food that I couldn't eat. And so 2009, 2010, I had no meal plan. I had a mini fridge and a microwave, and I was trying to live off of that, which does not really work that well. So I needed more work, right? So I needed that job at the Seismo lab. And then I also, when the RA job opened up, I took that too. And then there was an undergrad TA job that I heard about through like peers in my club that I applied to too, because then you could get free credits. And by free credits, I mean they would pay you money for a credit. And I could take that money and conceivably apply it to another credit because I had like no money. So I worked 3 jobs that junior year. And then on top of that, that was the year I was president of the Rockhounds too. So I was taking a full load of junior courses and math and physics and working and TA. And I was killing myself. But it was like some of the best grades I'd ever gotten. Like, I got like straight A's. It was just insane.
That's so amazing. And it's great because it's like it just is a testament to your persistence and the testament of persistence that other low-income students have to go through that a lot of people just don't realize. Like, that was me, except for I didn't do any geology work. I was an idiot and did bartending and serving because for me that was the shortest time commitment, right? I could do the time I was free, which is weekends and holidays. I could work and be a server, and that was the quickest amount of cash I could make, so I kind of regret that, but also at the same time it was just so easy to get into. And with labs and stuff, it's always uncertain. Let me interview you. I'll let you know in a week. And I'm just like, I'm just going to be like, let me just bartend. Let me just serve while being an RA and also taking and transferring to a new department.
Like consistent hours.
Yeah, and consistent hours and and it sounds weird, but job security. Yep. Because, a lot of these lab jobs are semester only. And they paid like $10 an hour. And for me, it's like a weekend bartending, I could make that easy.
Yeah.
Rather than commit.
I'm sure you made more money than I did.
Probably. I'd have to look back at my taxes, but like when I think about, I was enough to save up a significant amount moving to Reno. But yeah. I think it's awesome. And I hope that when people hear this, they understand.
Oh gosh.
Like,
it was
that's
such a struggle.
The struggle, and also like that's what low income students go through.
All the time.
All the time. It's not uncommon at all. Sorry, I get a little heartfelt.
I know.
So career services.
Okay, so Katya, sorry. Yeah. Katya helped me write my first resume, but also in my senior year, I did not have a geology resume still. Like I still was using the one I had before, but this time I had experience.
Yeah.
So after that hellish junior year, I applied to SAGE. I applied to the geophysical program. And I got a letter of rec from Dr. Louie because I'd been working at the lab at that point for over a year.
And Dr. Louis, like he's cream of the crop when it comes to
He
this.
is
Yeah.
the best. Like,
So I'm sure a rec letter from him went a long way. For
yeah,
me, it's like one thing, and I'll not to interrupt or sidetrack, but like people that are viewing this, when you do take a independent study, lab positions, whatever, look at the professor that you're working for and see if it's worth your time, even if it's free. For me, I did a lot of free work for professors, but and I didn't know until now, right? But like those professors were like top notch of their like people that if you go to conferences and you're in the field, you will seek them out to
yep,
talk to them and know about the research. So one of the people I did research for was Dr. Christopher Konarskis, and I fucking love that man. He's amazing, like pedestal type, professor. Um, and I didn't know this until I literally came to grad school, but it was his rec letter that really helped me get
yep.
positions and get into grad school because he has like 3 textbooks in his name, all of his had Twitter account, has a lot of following. Dude is just cream of the crop when it comes to ocean and climate science. Like like crazy fucking dude. Same thing. I got another rec letter from Dr. Alexis Templeton at CU Boulder. She is like the top environmental geochemist in the fucking United States of fucking America. And her wife are just they're a power couple basically. Like goals, right? Hashtag goals. But like that's what I'm saying is just like think, I can imagine that John Lewis, he is cream of the crop.
So I worked with him 2010. I got hired in January 2010.
Yeah.
I worked with him until I graduated.
Yeah.
And so did I work stable hours? No. Like I had a lot going on too. But the spring of 2011.
Yeah.
So okay, time out. Geophysics requirements for an undergrad that was on the calendar year that I belonged to. You were required to do either field camp or some kind of external program. Field camp, the year I needed it, got canceled by UNR, completely canceled. And I don't know if it was just lack of preparation or if there weren't enough people signing up, which I don't know how that would have happened, but it was canceled. So the only options that I had to be able to graduate on time were to apply for something like SAGE or to apply to another field program, which by the way, were unaffordable. I could not afford the $8,000 like for that. It was impossible.
I could only afford one field camp at CU Boulder. That was it. And
There's
for us, our
so
lab requirements were 3 lab requirements. So I can only afford one. The other 2, again, CU Boulder, phenomenal pedestal department for their undergrads. They had opportunities that you could take in the semester with your coursework. So like, your Friday whole day was field. So that was awesome. But yeah,
well, like there were field components to classes I was
yeah,
taking, but like you needed the formal one. So
right.
when they canceled it last minute, a lot of geology students were like rushing, trying to find
That's
things.
so unfair.
It was awful.
That is so
And
unfair.
I couldn't afford that. So I was just like, okay, I put in this application for SAGE.
Also, $8,000. Holy fucking shit.
Well, like they might not have been that expensive everywhere, but I remember looking around and like some of them were like 7, 8 grand.
I remember when I did field camp, it was a month long and at CU Boulder, and it wasn't a field. We don't have field camp. Let me put it that way. I took a summer field class, and it was $2,500 for the month,
Okay.
and that was for me. I didn't even have enough bartending money saved up. I was like loan, but like,
I had no money. So I was basically like, please, for the love of God, can I get into SAGE? Because if I didn't get into SAGE, then I wasn't going to graduate until, after.
That's so shitty though.
It was really rough.
I hate that. Sorry. And it makes me like boil. Like my heart is on fire because departments time and again will wonder why their students aren't retaining and why their diversity sucks and shit like that, and they won't graduate with a degree, and I'm like, it's fucking field camp. you idiot. Sorry,
Well,
but
my
that's
field
how
camp
mad it
is
makes me.
so good. But like also for me, I was a geophysicist.
Right.
Field camp is great for mapping. I did not like that was not what I was interested in. I'm not a geologist. Like I'm sure it would have been super useful,
Yeah.
but ultimately something more in my field, like a geophysical field camp, made more sense anyway. So
But like
that's why I
most
applied.
department, that's why I think CU Boulder did a great job, right? They did that. Whereas a lot of other programs do not offer anything other than that summer field experience to get the degree. And I'm like, look, think it's great, but you need to acknowledge how just having the summer field camp that's, one-time thing to get the degree, is a huge problem and as a barrier for a lot of
Yeah.
students, and they just don't acknowledge it. And I'm just like, you just want to be like slap slap. Like,
I mean, yeah, if you don't have anything left over from your loans that you took, like how are you going
how
to
are you going to get that
afford?
degree? Well, also that
You
you
could
don't
have
offer
to,
anything else. Like, there is more to geology than 6-week field experience. You could include independent study as a field experience. You can include geophysics, geochemistry, GIS mapping, like anything else, which is what, again, CU Boulder did, which I think is phenomenal. Because if, we're getting off track,
yeah.
but okay, so
So
recap.
recap. So they canceled field camp, but I'd already applied to Sage, which I was pointed to by Dr. Louie, of course, because Dr. Louie is amazing.
Yeah.
And he wrote my letter of rec, and I was accepted, which I remember jumping up and down in the geology student center. I was like, yeah! People were like, what is wrong with this woman? And the truth was that I had gotten into something that I really needed, and that was going to be more applicable to what I wanted to study than
I
anything
just
I'd
can't
ever done.
imagine if field can't, if you didn't get to either, like what would have happened. And I don't know if you think about
Oh
that.
God,
It's like a dark place to put yourself in. But just imagine how many other people are probably, I don't know.
so that was the first, I guess, the no. So that summer was the second summer I didn't go back home. For this, I took classes. I took the first summer off. I took classes the second summer to try and catch up on the non-degree requirement, humanities things that didn't count from all of the courses I took as a community college student, which was a lot. Yeah, I had 120 credits when I left community college and no degree, but yeah, only I think 70 something transferred, and the capstones were you still had to take them.
Right.
So then in 2011, I did field work, geophysical field work for Dr. Louie until I went to Sage, which takes place in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And then that's a 4-week program, and it's kind of like a drop kick program. So the first week is theory and classwork, and I think the next 2 weeks are field based. Gosh, I hope this is accurate still. It's kind of blurry.
Well, if anything, I will say towards the end too, but we'll put a link of all the stuff that we mentioned. That might help students. So
Sage is amazing.
yeah.
They definitely deserve all the praise. But it was theory, 2 weeks of field work, doing GPR, I drove a Vibra-sized truck. I drove a 60,000 ton vehicle or whatever it is, maybe 60,000 pounds, whatever it is. I drove one. You
Basically
were
a tank.
Yeah, no, this giant earth mover size thing. I drove that for a kilometer. So yeah, GPR, magnetics, gravity, reflection and refraction seismology, electromagnetics. I did TEM. There was MT and AMT. All of that in 2 weeks. Just lot of good stuff. And they were different, different types of geophysics were focused on different problems, right? So the seismology group, was looking to image the Santo Domingo fault. They wanted to know where it went. That's why they did seismic. The like MT, AMT, TEM crew and gravity, they were doing a geothermal prospect. They were imaging that, or trying to, as best as they could. And then the like near surface GPR, EM, magnetics, and I believe there was something else working, but it's been a few years. It's been a decade. Oh my God. They were looking for archaeological things. So 3 totally different types of problems, all using geophysics. Super useful. No matter what group you decided to go with, you still got the experience. So I went with the geothermal group, and I was processing AMT in the last week. The last week was processing data and preparing your presentation that you were going to give to like people in industry, a bunch of different professors who are running the group, a lot of people in industry. There were people, Exxon and Chevron were there, and a bunch of TAs and like alumni also.
That's really awesome. That's like such a great experience, and I
It
like
was
envy that.
so good, and I got paid for it.
Wow.
Like I didn't have to scrounge for like another probably, you know,
A month.
4 months.
4 months, yeah. So, okay, so the career services really helped you. Having that position with John Louis really helped in his rec letter to get into Sage, because, I mean, if you didn't get in and didn't do field, then, I mean, we'd have a different conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, like within the, are there within the department, or just things you kind of knew to take advantage of?
Well, haven't done Katya justice,
Yeah.
because she not only helped me do my first resume, but when I was getting ready to graduate, a lot of people, there were 11 of us who studied geophysics.
Right.
And a few of us were graduating, like 5, half the whoever. Yeah. The people I was graduating with, they were like, you know, like probably going to apply for grad school, but we're going to end up working in industry. And me having no money at that point, like I was almost broke. Right. It was really bad. I was like, okay, I'm applying to grad school, but I probably am going to have to work in industry, even though that's not my first choice.
Because graduate school doesn't pay the way industry pays. And so obviously you did the industry route because you had this.
Well, I can't tell you what happened there. I did apply. I did get accepted. They did not have the support that I needed. So
the grad school?
For grad school, yeah. I applied. I got into SMU, Southern Methodist, and I was going to work with Dave Blackwell and his group. But no money. And it's a private school. So like,
oh, that's even like funding prospects, you know, differ for private schools, but I can't imagine it was any better than UNR.
It was so much more expensive. So I had no other choice, basically. So we were facing down, you know, March came around, and all the people who said that I was going to graduate with said they were going to definitely look into industry. They all got into grad school and went to grad school. And me, I was the one who was like, I want to go to grad school, had to go into industry. So in March, I had no job lined up and I was broke. So I was desperately trying to find anything so that I could continue working in geophysics.
Right.
And the day I graduated, the day I walked, I got a phone call from Steve Risticelli at Mine Development Associates in Reno. And he told me that he got my name from Katya Albright.
Someone from career service.
She straight up hooked me up with my first job, like outside of school, because he was like, yeah, Katya says you're great. Come by on Monday. And I was just like, I was thinking of like how I was going to find jobs after moving back home, like with my parents, and like trying to work on all that. And suddenly like the doors opened and
that is so amazing. And Me on the other end, I took advantage of the networking events and build your resume workshops, come to our webinar, but I never really took advantage of career services.
They're
And I think
so good. Like
and I
they
think
live for this.
that's where I think I went wrong is yeah, I had all this, resume building, CV building, networking ability, extrovertedness, personality, and trying to market yourself and sell yourself. But I think I really truly did not have any advocates for me except for myself. And of course, the rec letters, right, from the people that I worked with in undergrad for free, by the way. But like that was it. I didn't really have that's just it's so reassuring to me. I know it kind of is shitty at first because I was like, damn it, I missed out. And I went to a different institution, so maybe I can't say 100% sure, right? Who
Mhm.
knows? Like, I can't, CU Boulder's career services could have been trash, and I wouldn't have known. Good
Well,
luck
I
if they
was,
didn't take advantage of it. But that's
yeah,
awesome that like it worked.
that was just, I felt so blessed that day because I
Yeah.
graduated. I got the phone call like at my graduation
And it's
party.
crazy that like someone was there to advocate. And did you go to career services a lot, or is it just like one appointment here and there? Like,
Oh,
did you have a relationship with Katya, or
I did. I built one up because I was a club officer,
yeah,
and so I was trying to like get people interested in our events,
right?
and I was trying to host events that students might be able to use for like their own career search. And so I was basically like, "Hey, Katya, we're trying to put on X, Y, and Z. Help!" And
Right.
she did, and she's done like I've even as a grad student, she's helped me like
Okay.
immensely.
Well, now as a grad student, I'm gonna start, emailing her and be like, derp, derp, derp. Like Justine told
She's
me.
amazing,
Yeah.
and she's got such a soft spot for Mackie, even though she's at the big UNR career studio now.
Yeah.
She's, you
Yeah.
know,
So yeah, next time I'll have to, not next time, I will for sure. And it's good to hear that, and I hope that like there's consistency across the board. I could have, would have, should have, and who knows if CU Boulder's career services could hold up to the reputation that you're building. But you
yeah.
know it's I'm
Hopefully.
telling you right now that it's a service that I did not, besides the career fairs and the resume workshops and all that, I did not really truly take advantage of career services at
But like career fairs, I had the same problem with career fairs, and I still have this problem with
Mhm.
career fairs. But I had the same problem with career fairs that I had with going to those like networking
Yeah.
events, and just I didn't know how to talk to people. And if you don't learn how to talk to people, you can go to every career fair ever and still feel like a clammy like fish person
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. And I think that the opposite was for me, right? Is like I was able to get interviews. I was able to progress through interviews. It was always that, do we choose between someone that we had a good impression on or someone that also has a good impression but now also has experience
Yeah.
and other people advocating for them? Like for me, I was missing that, and it was really heartbreaking, right? Because I thought I was, when I tell people about what I did, they're like, you did everything right, it's just your bad luck. But I'm like, I could have done a little bit more.
That was probably one of the lessons that I've learned over the last, 10 plus years of being a geophysicist is that I would not, okay, for every job I've held, only one of those jobs I got without networking. Only
Wow.
and that was Schlumberger. And that it was the biggest job I had.
Schlumberger is what I like to call it.
Schlumberger. So what happened, and this, it might not have been networking, but it's still, Katya helped me with this because I got this job with Steve in
Wisnowski?
Reno. What?
Oh, never mind.
Steve Risticelli.
Okay.
For working for MDA, I got this job with him. And then I updated all of my like online portal resumes for everything that I'd applied to that nobody had cared about. And within a week of doing that, I got a call from Schlumberger. So because of that internship, I got hired full time.
Wow.
And because of Katya, I got that internship, and because of every other opportunity. So that the things that I mostly would just definitely like, if I could just leave a person with any message, it would be to grow your network and develop it and nurture it, and also to try everything. Because if I hadn't just taken every opportunity I possibly could afford, who knows what would have
Like,
happened.
and it's easy to eye roll. Did you do this? And I'm like, oh, yes. But it's like, no, did you actually do this? Like,
Yeah.
did you go to career services? And for me, I can eye roll and be like, yes, I've done all the career services webinars. And it's like, no, did you go to career fucking services?
Put a face to the name, you know?
And that's a big thing too. And it's any industry now, right? And I think it's great, right? More people are applying for things because more people have an education, more people are getting experience. I don't think that's a bad thing. But there is, and people are like, well, it's a bias and it sucks. But it's, to me, it's like, that's just the way it is. The name to face is such an important bias to have, regardless of who you are. Show them your fucking face.
Well,
Call that,
the other thing is that people like hiring, and I learned this when I was going through my layoff training stuff, but like managers will be like, I want this education, I want this, I want that, I want X, Y, and Z. But when they meet you, if they like you, they care more about whether they can work with you and whether they can train you than they care about all of the things that they put on the like.
Yeah, you have to meet the minimum. Okay, I'm gonna
not even all the time. Sometimes they'll just be like, yeah, I really like this guy, so we're gonna hire him.
Yeah.
And wait, you wanted a PhD and this person has a bachelor's.
Yeah.
It doesn't always matter.
Yeah. So you essentially where we're at is you've got this amazing opportunity with Schlumberger.
Yes.
That's amazing. And just to recap, it's amazing how just taking advantage of even the smallest things like makes a huge difference. So this is actually a good segue because I can see, just like reflecting on your experiences, I can imagine it's really frustrating. So do you have any current or past frustrations with the field of geology, be it in the industry? So maybe you can speak more on your industry experiences or, in academia as well. Like, what was frustrating for you? And I know it sounds very negative, but I hope, it kind of like brings light to like some people watching this, like what we think in an honest way.
So, one thing comes to mind immediately is that there are not as many women in geoscience as I would like.
Yeah.
That's, I've been very fortunate to have people that I could use as role models. Probably my biggest role model is Louise Pellerin, who was my advisor in SAGE. And I look at her and she's, first off, she's just such a badass. Like all the shout outs to Dr. Lou, because like she first has a PhD in geophysics.
Right.
She runs this program, basically. She's one of the co-founders, I believe.
What program was it? SAGE?
SAGE, Summer of Applied Geophysical Experience.
Right.
SAGE. She runs her own company in geophysics.
What company is that?
It's called Green Geophysics, and it's out of Berkeley, I believe, Berkeley, California.
Okay.
So she does a lot of mentoring. She does a lot of just good science. She is a role model for women who might want to take it to the next step and work outside of academia. Because don't get me wrong, there are women geophysicists like Wendy. Wendy was a great role model to me as an undergrad. But if your ambitions differ, it helps to have another person.
Right.
And I actually, back in 2018, 2 internships ago, I had one of the people in my cohort say, Justine, you're my role model. And I was like, no, your role model is Louise Pellerin because she's my role model.
Yeah.
So it always helps to like be able to see someone where you want to go, like someone who like is that leader. And unfortunately, it feels like a lot of women are discouraged from really taking full advantage of doing the science that they want to do, either because of, financial constraints or familial obligations, or just a lack of opportunity to pursue their science.
Is it a lack of women being able to pursue, or a lack of women being mentors for other women? And that could be anything, right? That could be doing the YouTube videos, getting on social media. Because for me, I have quite the opposite experience, right? It's like I had a lot of female female scientists to look up to. And it was because they were willing to put themselves out there. And so for me, I mean, I hear you, but the way I see it is a lot of females are discouraged from doing mentorship positions. And I don't know if they're discouraged, but I do see a lack of it, right?
In my experience, I would say there's a bit of truth to both. So when I was an undergrad, I had Wendy,
Mm-hmm.
and there were some grad students, female geophysics grad students.
Dr. Calvin is like a god.
She is
She's
the
a,
best.
she is a literal geology goddess. Like,
she's so good.
yeah.
And like having her as my course counselor or whatever was really helpful. But the rest of the UNR geology department at the time was mostly old white men,
Right,
who had not yet they are retired now, or they're getting near retirement, but I am not an old white man, so it helps to have that. The other thing is, let's on the mentorship side of things.
for me, it's like when I think of the people that were available for mentoring me, giving me lab positions, providing insight, being like, oh, come to this marketing event, sorry, networking event, come to my lab and I'll show you around. It was always the male professors and the male, researchers that were willing to do that. And I just can't tell. And again, this is a bias. I'm not saying that that's a thing. And we're both speaking on biases, right? Because definitely my department,
experience and your experience have not been the same.
Well, not just that, like CU Boulder's department was definitely drastically more diverse than UNR's department. Currently,
back
before,
then,
yeah,
even more.
Like
so.
when I was an undergrad, and even before, like you look at graduating classes and stuff, and the professors and the people that are tenured at CU Boulder, definitely way more diverse than it was at UNR. So I'm wondering if it's just like, is there a fear for mentorship? Is there like the feeling of not, I'm not adequate enough to project that I'm success, or I don't want to.
I hope not.
I hope not either. I'm wondering what that is, because when I don't know. And again, it's just that maybe it's just both of our biases, and we're just in this ether of unknown, right?
I have nothing against old white men, by the way. I should put that out there.
If anything,
a lot of opportunities I've gotten were from old white men.
If it wasn't for old white men, I wouldn't be here. Yeah.
But the point is, it's easier to be what you can see. And if you're a female in a largely, like, geophysics is not 50-50.
Well, it's also just building sense of community. And obviously if we're in India, this would be a different story, but there's not many Indian geologists. And so for me, it's like, I'm a stranger to my own community, because I mean, I can go into detail about, Indian community scrutiny about like why I'm not an engineer or a doctor or having kids or anything like that, or the ideal Indian woman. But like, also at the same time, even the more progressive Indians, and I'm not saying they do this intentionally, but then for them, it's like, again, geology and earth sciences is just not a traditional field that Indians go into. And so go ahead.
One of my greatest bosses ever was an Indian woman geophysicist.
Really? That's awesome. Love to meet her.
Great. I think she's in the US now. I could tell you all about her. She was on the ship, and before I met her in training for Schlumberger. She worked for Schlumberger. Then she became a chief field geo. And then after that, she went into sales, and then she got into Harvard, and she started her own startup since then. So
I want to meet this woman.
There are badass women, and Indian and besides that, like, if you get more exposure, you can find more of these people, which is,
Yeah.
I think, probably like my like MO this whole time, is trying to get more exposure to
Right.
like find those people. And female mentors do exist,
They do. Yeah.
but they're not as prevalent in Reno as I think they should
Okay.
be.
So yeah, I think it's just a bias thing. Like you're in Reno and it's just what the department is like and who's
Not
here.
even the department. This has happened, okay, a Mackey banquet. This was from 2009. I took my husband one year because it was on my birthday, because it's usually on my birthday.
Ooh.
And I took my husband with me, and all of the industry people were trying to talk to him. My husband is a librarian. He does not rock, like he rocks, don't get me wrong, but he does not geology. So like he was just like, you need to talk to my wife. And like, but this happened multiple times.
Right.
And at a certain point, you feel a little out of place if you don't have a bigger or wider support system.
Right.
And that is a problem with Reno that I'm hoping to change.
Right.
Because
Which is why we're doing this.
yeah, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could change Reno in a day, but like it
No.
would be nice to put different faces on what a geoscientist is.
Right.
And that's probably one of my and here's the other thing, okay? It's not just the sense of women not being mentors to me. It's also this like misplaced sense of, well, I am a successful woman in geoscience. And so I got this far. And if I could do it, you can do it, which is
Right.
true. But that's disregarding a lot of help that you personally get.
Personally
Like,
got, yeah.
I can name off lists of people who have helped me get to where I am today. And I don't forget that. And when it comes to people needing help behind me, I remember that. So that like misplaced attitude of like, oh, well, why do you think you're special just because you're a woman? It's like, that's not the point. The point is not that I'm a woman and I deserve like more like opportunities. The point is that there is this unconscious bias towards like women in some of these geoscience roles that pushes people out, and you're just losing that much like more like diversity and difference of like viewpoints and good scientists that you don't have to lose, so that's something that I find incredibly frustrating, which is partly why I'm working with Stacia and Ellen and Heather and Lizzie to like get AWG started for like the Great Basin region, because we could start. Well, I got a phone call, and I'm not going to say who it's from, but I got a phone call from a female geoscientist person in the region, and she literally asked me, why do you call it, Association of Women Geoscientists? Why not Association of Women and Men Geoscientists? And I had to stop myself from explaining that there are those organizations that already exist for just general geoscientists.
Yeah.
This is specifically to help mentor and support women geoscientists, because there is a definite discrepancy that you can track with data that shows that women are dropping out of geoscience more than men. It's just a fact.
Oh my God. And that's another...
like this mentality is toxic, to think that like there's no problem is like false. So the more we can work on it, the more we can try.
And the other thing with and I totally agree. And another side note with the women picture a scientist thing, we had that, was it her name Jane?
Jane Willenbring, Dr. Willenbring.
Dr. Willenbring. I remember this. I asked her the question, like, what support systems do you have? When she was talking about her sexual assault, and I was like, well, how did you get through the undergrad? Like, how did you get through graduate school? And she admitted having and this is the elitism part, she admitted to having a second job throughout graduate school to get her PhD. She admitted to working at Starbucks until she got her PhD. And all I can do was just like air punch the screen and be like, because I've been pushing for this. It's like, this is, for me, elitist mindset means you are not acknowledging a certain group of people because you had help financially and culturally speaking.
Oh
Just
yeah.
purely that. And you are refusing to acknowledge those who are, and I particularly feel it from the females of the department, because it's like, that's awesome that you had parents in science, or parents that were willing to help you and see you, a community that was willing to see you and support you, very little financial commitment, you know. And so for me, it was just like imagine how the women of lower income backgrounds feel when
So
when you refuse to put a second job clause. And I've been trying to push for this, is like, put a clause in there that says it is okay to have a second job in grad school. That's all we want. Like,
yep.
the
Some of them they like have clauses specifically prohibiting you from having
prohibiting.
another
And
job.
I'm just like, and we don't have that in the UNR handbook. It's not
No.
stated, but the culture is, right, you don't work a second job in grad school because you're
Because it's too much.
too
But
much.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. If it's too much, then maybe you have to reevaluate the program that you're putting
Program.
forward.
Or not just that, be realistic about the students that you're admitting.
Yeah.
Because yeah, if you want to uphold the status quo, then admit to that, and then realize that's kind of classist. Like,
Well, that's the other thing. And this was a real problem for me when
yeah,
I started at UNR is like I don't have children, so that's
yeah,
not a big
right,
deal. But I'm married. I'm
yeah,
married, so I
yeah,
have to take into consideration my husband,
yeah,
which is just a courteous thing to do, like
yeah.
in general. He's actually like been one of the most supportive people,
That's
if
awesome to
not,
hear.
if not the most supportive
Yeah,
person. Um, but like I take him into consideration in most things. It affects like where I work, how long I work, where I can apply for school, because I care about being with him. Because when I worked for Schlumberger, I was gone. I was gone. I spent 300 days gone in 2014.
I cannot do that.
Yeah. It was stupid,
Yeah,
right? And of course, to get laid off anyway, it's like, whatever, like middle fingers to the air. But I also had to worry about when I started grad school, I'd been laid off. We'd gone through a lot of our savings. We got married, which cost money. And then he was working part time. He wasn't working full time yet. So I had to support us. We were earning about the same much, which was a big change from when I worked at Schlumberger. My parents, I love them, but I have been financially independent or struggling in one way or another since I was 18. So like even when they wanted to help me, because my like last semester I was broke
right.
as an undergrad, even when they were like, we want to help you if you need to get a second loan, the situation was that they'd already done that for my siblings. And when I came around, they would have needed like another cosigner anyway to sign a loan. So they were strapped already with their commitments. So when it came to me, I was kind of just like on my own, or like I had to come up with an alternative. And I was lucky enough to have grandparents who were like, here's the cash, finish your school. But
Right.
like if that did not exist, that would have been a totally different story again. So like hearing these like bourgeoisie like overtones of just like the immense wealth and like just disconnected mindset of people who might not have that support system or might not have that money, just it made it that much harder to like feel like you belonged in grad school,
Oh,
you
and
know.
I think for me it's hearing that, like, it's for me, and again, this is going back to the frustration of elitism, is just you're hearing that, oh, my parents had PhDs in geology, and I'm like, that must be amazing. I would love if my parents were able to understand a fucking word from the geology dictionary, like things like that. My dad, and I love them, right? And my dad, literally, I literally just talked to my dad 2 hours ago, and he was talking about my research in Hawaii, and it's sad because I appreciate him. I love him. He's working really hard to try, and I can see it. But like, imagine like the drastic difference of support that you have when you acknowledge. And for me, I think it's also being real, because when you're not being real with people, then you're misleading them, and then again, you're perpetuating this elitism. So the one big thing, right, was we just had grad venture. People were like, yes, we can live off the grad stipend, no problem. And I was like, good, but you need to say why.
I didn't
you're not in
even
debt.
talk
Yeah.
about that because
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh, I
my
was
situation is not applicable to most of you.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we were in the same group and I was just like, evaluate what your life is because and I told them, I was like, I get by. I don't have a saving, and I think it's just like being real. And I told them up front, I have debt. I pay my own car bill.
Yep.
I told them the reality and then I get by. But like when
Yep.
and what really frustrates me, and it even happened last year and the year before, was people would be like, yeah, we can get by. Or like the grad stipend is enough. We're fine. We can go out and have drinks and pay rent and have groceries. And I'm like, what the fuck else are you paying for then? Because you're misleading these guys. You don't know what they're all going through. So for me, it's like, just say, how hard is it to add that extra sentence? But I have no student loan debt. I don't pay for my own car. My parents support me. Like, it's okay. And for me, it's like, at least to me, it's like, I'd much rather have that reality check than not be presented to that at all. And then Wendy did a great job. We had like we always have our little mini heart to hearts. But I was just telling her, I was like, I feel pretty inadequate and I don't feel like I'm putting the work that I need to. And I was telling her how much I look up to her. And I was like, how do it's kind of like, how do you do it? And she was like, I have like an 80-hour work week. When I was doing my PhD, it was like 40 to 60 hours a week. Even though we don't pay you that, like, just know that like this is kind of how you get shit done. And if you want to get your research done, write manuscripts, be a mentor, start, make changes in the department, you're going to have a 40 to 60-hour work week. And I was just like, and
You
intuitively,
get
right?
paid 20.
Yeah.
You get paid 20 if you're lucky.
Yeah. If you're
Which
lucky,
is
you get paid 10.
garbage. It's garbage.
But then like for me, it was just like, I knew that. Like, in your head, in the back of your head, you kind of knew that. Like, I have to work a lot of hours. But like, until someone tells you with experience, someone who's professional and who has made it, right? Until they tell you, this is how I got through, it really just doesn't click. And to me, it was just a nice bird. Like, it was just like, oh, like, finally, I think maybe it's the validation. And again, you're perpetuating elitism when you withhold that information. But when you're not withholding that information, you're being real. And yeah, I'm not saying it's okay to work 80 hours a week. It's not okay. But like giving that reality check and understanding, yeah, it's a problem that you have to commit 60 hours a week, but that's just the way it is. And we're going to try to work around it, or like try to offer support. For me, that's just the biggest frustration. It's just like, why are you withholding information about your experiences that perpetuate elitism? Sorry.
Now,
That was a lot.
one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts, not gender based at all,
Yeah.
is that, oh, here I go. So
Just spit it out.
I worked in industry.
Yeah.
I came back to school for my graduate degree. And this isn't the case with all the professors, thankfully, but a lot of professors have a myopic view of industry. They do not consider it at all. They do not think about it at all. And if you're going to get your PhD, like I'm trying to do, they want you to go into academia, even if you've told them you do not want to go into academia. You get funneled into that system, whether you like it or not. And
why do you think that is? Is it because like
I
there's
can
this
tell
idea?
you exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
This is my opinion. It might not be true in every case.
The way you
There's
see
a
it.
lot of good examples at UNR where this is not the case. But a lot of people who go into academia, they get their grad or their undergrad degree, they get right into grad school. I don't know if it's money or what. Like they have the options to go right in. Then they get their next degree without taking a break, without breathing. They get their PhD. Then they get their postdoc, and then they get their the professorship. So they have never worked in industry ever, the whole time. And maybe they've worked at a national lab for like an internship, or maybe they're, but like they do not generally work in industry. And so it's very easy to go, well, this was my path. This is what makes sense to me. That must be what everyone wants, or that must be what anyone who's pursuing a PhD wants. And that's not the case. So I think that's been very frustrating, not just as a student, but as a club leader who's like trying to connect students with people outside of academia. You cannot get, I cannot count on most professors to ever, ever share the like extracurricular industry-based talks. I can never, like, nobody has like the 5 minutes in front of class, like, for promoting an industry type event. And the fact that you were able to do that just for clubs was really important. But for individual things, they don't attend them, they don't go to them, they don't like help you find people to speak at them.
I will let you in on a little dirty detail. I actually tried advertising the ASBOG. So for those watching, ASBOG is a way to get your professional geology licensure, so you can practice in the industry in different states, depending on
like more than 30 states.
More than 30 states. This. So this is like job opportunity opens up. I advertised it to almost all the undergraduate geology classes, like to the professors. I emailed them individually, and I made 2 PDF slides. One was the ASBOG one, and one was actually advertising. We had a seminar speaker that was going to do the growing up in science talk. So I was like, these are really 2 great opportunities. One, learn about academia and how you get into academia. One, how you get into industry. None of them advertised it in their class.
They don't care.
I was livid because I was like, I did all the work for you. I put together the PowerPoint slide. I literally wrote the paragraph for you. All you had to do was to insert it to the beginning of your lecture, post it to your students, read the fucking paragraph that I wrote for you, or read off the slide, whichever one you wanted to do. But I was because we had a webinar that was free up until the day of. You had to pay $20, but it was free to learn about, if you registered, to learn about how to get a professional geology licensure to undergrads, people that are trying to figure out what they're trying to do. And I was absolutely livid.
And the likelihood that you're going to stay in Nevada, or you're going to stay in, one of these non-professional geologists requiring states for your entire career is a myth. It's not realistic, especially in this economy.
So frustrating that the professors were unwilling. Sorry, we're both like
I know. And the worst part is, if you look at the ASBOG map and Nevada, it's surrounded on all sides by ASBOG requiring states.
I was just I wanted to cry, and I literally just went to and the way I found out, and this is what I love about our department, is at least the grad students look out for each other. So I asked the other TAs, hey, did they put this in the lecture? And they're like, no. And I was just like, and I just went to the gym, right? And I just lifted a bunch of weights and was like, ah! And I'm just like, oh, that is so frustrating. So besides, the women thing, right? In academia, it's just like the lack of the professors will, and I will admit,
it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't have to be like that. And the weird thing was, in CU Boulder, we had a mix because we had a lot of industry people teaching as well. So there was a lot of mix. There were some classes where they would advertise it, and there were some classes that they wouldn't. So, it's kind of just like, where are you at? And I think that's also unfair. You should have some sort of consistency. But coming to UNR and having that actually physically, because, at this point, we didn't have any accountability. And so me literally finding out that the work I put in, the easy not even you know what I mean? Just you could have just forwarded the email. Just forward the fucking email to your students. That I was just like, are you fucking serious? And then and the worst
literally happens to me on a monthly basis. With my NPGS meetings, because we have a department.
Did you get any undergrads for that, by the way?
I've gotten a few. I get I think 2 this semester, 2 new ones, but I have some in my rotation.
Okay. I feel
good. We have a geothermal department, basically, or subsect of grad students. And with the exception of Kurt, pretty much none of them ever come to NPGS meetings. And none of the professors promote this free event for their students. Right. So how do I reach out to people like, how do I get people to go for free? Like, I pay for everything, or the club pays for everything, you know? And like, you can't get people to try even to advertise things. It's
and I
pathetic.
get my students, right? Because for me, it's like I haven't been able to make a lot of stuff because it's class and like other commitments, right? So I have class and then lecture and then I work a second job.
Yeah.
So like that's different, and I understand
No,
the student side,
totally
and that's
different.
okay. For me, it's like if I advertise something and the students don't show up, fine, that's on them. But like if you don't advertise at all, then like fuck you. Like, oh, we both are so heated right now.
The professors need to step up to bring these opportunities to their students.
Yeah.
Because there is like an invisible force field.
Are we going to get in trouble for this?
Maybe. You can always edit it. But like, it's a fact though. Like, I shouldn't have to count on just my word of mouth alone or hosting something with Dr. Louie to get students interested.
And the worst part
is available.
And then the frustrating thing, right, is like they ask the question at the faculty meetings, why don't our students feel like a sense of community? And I'm like, maybe supporting and advertising student events might change things.
Well, and that's part of they have a free platform to advertise anything to students, graduates or undergraduates.
Student lectures are recorded anyway. If anything, this is the greatest time to do it.
I know, right?
People can look back at shit.
Yeah, but in addition to that, there's the 21st century problem of just how to reach students.
Right.
Like, as a club leader, I can send emails out and they will get lost in everybody else's emails, no problem, right?
Yeah.
I have no position of authority. They might not know my name. Doesn't matter. I can put things on walls, but you know what people are doing when they're walking through the hallway? They're on their phone.
They're on their phone. Or if you're me, I'm looking to see if they restock the vending machine, then make my way to my office.
Well, they're on their phone. Even if you put it on the floor, they won't notice.
They won't even notice unless it's money. Like, we should do that. Just start gluing dollar bills to the floor, fake dollar bills, but it's an advertisement to the club. Like, this was great.
Nobody cares. And it's just, like I said earlier, most thankless task being a student club leader. And without having the support of someone in a position of like power or position of professorship or administrative support, nothing's going to change, you know? And I think that's probably the most frustrating thing, because it's twofold. It's one, they either don't care because they're just apathetic, or two, they don't care because they don't think about industry as an option, or they've had other like means to their success that don't involve people.
Yeah. Or even just like they don't see the endorsement. Like, I know, now I understand political endorsement, because it's when you have faculty endorsing your club, it actually does mean a lot, because that means you putting even the smallest amount of time, which is an hour a week, into this club, you are promoting it into the students that you teach, the students that look up to you, who will value your opinion. Because like, shit, when Wendy says something, like even during a meeting, I'm out there Googling that shit. Like, like that's how much I look up to her, and I would take, I trust her opinion and I trust her recommendations. The same thing goes in undergrad. I mean, I did that too. A professor I look at their sources, like when they post an image and I see a source, I'm like in lecture also looking at that, I think it's just like maybe it's a mindset where it's like putting the time is that they don't think there's a payoff. I don't know. We're just now at this point, we're just exploring the idea. Yeah.
But like, why not try?
Why not try? And like,
if you're using a shotgun blast approach, that's still an approach, like it's not going to hit everybody.
Well, and just know that like students and professors and frustration number 35, right? Professors, I don't think understand or see the influence that they have in the department. And maybe and it could be and I wonder if it's just their own little culture, right? Academia culture, that they devalue themselves or they devalue their content. I don't know. And of course, I'm never in that world. So it might be one of those things where I have to interview someone like Joel would be one person I would interview because he's awesome. But
Well,
like, but like, you know, I wonder what it is. Because like, why are you ignoring advertising? Why are you hesitant on endorsing or not even endorsing even just like it's simply just advertising. Endorsing would be prime. It'd be great,
yeah.
you know? Um, yeah.
And then you get professors like John Louie who are like the club leader for like 3 different clubs that
Right.
no one stops up,
Yeah.
and then inevitably gets spread a little thin.
Yeah. It
So
does. And it's discouraging when you have students that are not motivated to. It's like there's so many factors playing in that
well,
it's
there
hard to
are ways
pinpoint
you can incentivize things as a professor that you cannot incentivize as a
as a
student.
student. Yeah.
So like, for example, I 2 years in a row, not last year, but 2 years in a row, we had the exploration career panel for energy, which is the student association for Society of Exploration Geophysicists and the American Association of Petroleum Geologists. We're joint, just for your like viewers.
Yeah.
And that's the club I'm the president of right now. So 2 years in a row, we had an exploration or a geoscience career panel where we brought in industry professionals or academics or government employees. We had people from different sectors of industry, different sectors of exploration come in, talk to students, right? And I advertised this with the grad students to little avail. I had a few grad students come, maybe like 3 for both years, maximum, right? And then the majority of people that showed up were John Louis students because he said, hey, I'm not going to be here this Friday. Go to this for class credit. Sign a sheet. That's it. Like, there are like scheduling ways that you can
Extra credit incentives are the best.
exactly. Like there's so many ways that like professors can get their students to like go to these things.
Yeah. And here's the thing is like and I practice this philosophy because I'm also, trying to do fat loss and stuff. It's like and it's a big thing with health, right? Just get yourself out and moving. Once you start moving, you can evaluate, am I still tired? Go back. Or, oh, I'm moving, body in motion, sense sustained motion. So like me, when I'm tired and I have to go to the gym because you need those gains, and I start lifting weights, 90% of the time, I think once this entire month of February, I went back home because I was like, I'm way too damn tired. I need a nap. But most of the time, I'm there and I'm like, no, I feel the adrenaline, I feel the caffeine, like I'm good. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's really just the push. Like sometimes that's all it takes is go to extra credit, and then you'll get the few that are like, not for me. I'm done. Gonna go home, stay lazy, whatever. That's okay. But then sometimes it just takes that one extra credit incentive or just the walk outside, right? The exposure to be like, oh, this is actually very helpful. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Frustration number 100, go.
But this is the thing though, is in the last few years that I've been here, I've heard this consistent theme, like we're not as unified as we should be for the department. We're all in our little camps, and how do we become more unified as a student body, and how do we become more unified as the Mackey School again? And the answer is that you have to support each other.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to make any efforts to do that,
yeah.
Don't act surprised when it's not working.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have any frustrations through industry? I know we talked about academia a lot.
So for the stakes for industry are like, hey, you do this or you're fired. So they're a little higher than like school. And so when I was in Abu Dhabi, for example, the first time I met Sneha, who was amazing, I was having trouble because they would be like, all right, there's going to be a quiz. It's 5 minutes, boom. And you would have to like sit at your computer and be like, for like, a couple minutes. And I wasn't finishing what I needed to quickly enough. So I was not doing as well. So I was getting a little bit closer to being fired than I needed to be if I had just spoke up earlier and said, hey, like, hey, I have this thing, it's documented, please take it into consideration. And it doesn't mean that I'm like dumber. It just means that I just need like an extra minute and a half.
Right.
And so that I made my life a little more difficult than it had to be. And that's not really a frustration with them specifically as much as it is with myself. Because
Was it consistent though? Like, with every other job you felt like that?
So
In
not
industry, not in academia.
so this has been kind of a perennial issue that I deal with because you get that imposter syndrome that's like, I should already know how to do this. This shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to keep beating this drum, but just because woman in geoscience and woman in not exploration even, but field like geophysics. So when I worked on the ship, at one point I was like one of 3 women in a crew of 60 people.
So is representation in industry also frustration, or is it just like you see it improving, so it's not much
It is definitely a frustration. When I worked at Schlumberger, they said 17% of people working in the field were women.
Oh.
And depending what segment you were in, that number dropped even further. So, for example, Western Geco probably below at the time. Now, I don't know what the situation is anymore, and not every cruise was 3 women, but every cruise was usually less than a dozen women. So you never made up that 20% of people.
Yeah.
And then how do I put this nicely? When you're working on a tin can for weeks at a time, the basic lizard brain comes out a little more. So I was like 23. I was, like, I'm like 5'3", so I'm same height. Like, I'm not a big person. I'm not like a tiny person, but I'm not big. And like, you could definitely tell after 2 weeks that the men folk were missing their wives and girlfriends.
Oh no.
Yeah. And yeah, so like,
did you have to I mean, we don't have to talk about it, but like, I hope that you didn't have to experience anything that was traumatic.
Nothing traumatic, but you definitely you can, I don't want to say like to a certain extent, and this is the frustration part, to a certain extent I expect men working at sea to have lizard brain at a certain point. I get it. There are biological things happening.
Well, also it's just like a company problem. Like, have some sort of family visitation policy.
There's no way to do that on a ship.
Well, of course, yes. It's really hard. But like, so my example is like, I worked, my first bartending gig was a dive-ish bar outside of Denver City, and it was notoriously a truck stop. And so truckers on one, like, especially if you're serious about trucking, or construction crews, right, would also stay there, or sorry, come to our establishment. And it was just like bartending. I mean, being in the service industry, right, you are notoriously subjected to harassment of all kinds, right, from the Karens to the horny men. But like, it was especially bad working there because it was people on the road who did not get to see their families for months at a time, construction crews that were temp workers that worked out there for months at a time, and then they go home for a month. And it was just I've been left tips of phone numbers and room keys. And it was, one guy came to my bar for about 2 weeks. It was to the point where the manager kicked him out and banned him from the establishment because he basically would keep commenting on the way I looked. He'd be like, what? I would wear my work uniform, which was, I'm not gonna lie, a little showy, but like, you're a dive bar, so you're like, for anything for the tips. But like, yeah, well, it would just be like, why'd you have to dressed like that today. You know, you're looking so good. And I was to the point where I was just like scared to close because I was like,
Yeah.
he would stay there until close. Yeah. Sorry. So I hope you didn't have to experience anything like that because I can just imagine like, oh,
Nothing quite
yeah,
as, ooh, nothing quite as predatory, I suppose,
yeah,
in that regard.
yeah.
But I know that
But I'm also in
they,
an environment where I'm serving alcohol, right?
yeah,
Like,
no alcohol
yeah,
in a shake. Like,
yeah,
I expect like people to have their like titty pictures in their
yeah,
bedroom. Like,
yeah,
if I'm walking down the hallway and there's a titty picture, which that actually happened,
yeah,
I get it. Like,
yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
To each their own, you
yeah.
know. But like, when you hear that you're being ranked, when there's like
Oh, well, there's like four
you're
other
one of
people. Yeah,
X many women on
yeah.
board, and they've ranked you from like one to, you know, as far as like amongst the other women coworkers, that's a problem, okay? And like I can forgive a lot as far as like horny stupid men go, but like why would that be a thing? You know, like that is unprofessional and unnecessary and creepy. Like, but those are the kinds of things that like I would find out about that are systematic because who's writing the rules? You know, you're supposed to put on this
I
like
mean, it just
fun.
speaks to like the work environment. It's like, how do we make that type of work environment safer and better? And I'm not saying safer for you as a woman working on a predominantly male, workplace. And I
Yeah.
don't see, I get that there's an issue, right, with representation, but there's just some jobs that will be notoriously male dominant. And
Yep.
I don't think there's anything you can do. There's literally you could do any fucking thing to the rules and it would still be male dominant. And that's just how and maybe it's just me and I just don't have that much of an open mind, but like that's just how it's gonna be. But like then as
Oh,
a company, you need to evaluate what kind of policies and workplace are you fostering where you're allowing this shit to happen. Like, and
well,
to me, it's
when
yeah,
all of the people in leadership positions are men, it's going to
yeah,
be different from if
yeah,
there's like more mixed
yeah,
ratio of
yeah,
female to males. So like these are all things, these are reasons that women get pushed out of geoscience
yeah,
too. So
yeah.
like there it's not just the effect, it's also the
The
cause, you know.
cause, yeah,
So that is something I find incredibly frustrating,
yeah,
especially in the field environment. And it's not just an issue of men being men. Like
yeah.
there's also um,
Well, just
boundaries that
because you're a man doesn't mean it gives you the right.
no, and just because you're a man doesn't mean you're doing it. Like
Yeah,
it's not everybody.
yeah,
So like it's harder to police in that sense.
yeah,
But there are certain I guess obstacles basically that if you want to be a field person, you're gonna have to put up with a lot more of that type of sexist shit. And that's not okay.
no,
And you know, it's not necessary. Like it
yeah.
doesn't have to happen.
It doesn't have to happen, and it's just like I think it's just communication.
I
Treat
think
everyone like a human being, not
I
as,
think the other problem that I've encountered, especially when I was doing my job search, like I will tell you one example. So I was doing my job search after I got laid off.
and this is an industry frustration, just to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, an industry frustration. And this is more on the hiring side of things. But a lot of my frustrations mostly are because I'm a woman. And I've honestly told my husband countless numbers of times, if I just went by Justine Overacker, I would have so many more opportunities. I would like, and it's very frustrating, but that's not specific to industry. But in industry, when I was doing my job search, someone who's interested in keeping a field component to their
To their
like
work.
work, which is why I like work with Bill Hammond instead of John Louie. Honestly, it's because he offered me a field component to things. Um, what happened was I came to this career fair. I had been to a few that week. I'd been like job hunting. So like some of the like slacks that I usually wear were not clean.
Yeah.
So I wore a skirt to a career fair, dun, 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 right? So I walk up to this, I'm not going to name the company, but I walked up to this geotech group. At least they use geotech. And I walk up to him in my skirt.
Oh no.
And I didn't even get a chance to like put my resume down or anything. It was incredible. She went, "Oh, we work outside. You are not gonna." It was a female. Yeah, we work
All
outside.
because you chose to wear a skirt to a career fair over fucking pants.
I know.
I'm
And she goes,
sorry, you're
"Oh,
not.
you won't like this. It's very tough work. We work outside." And I said to her, I've been working on an oil like rig basically for the
Yeah.
last 3 years. Like, you looked at me and you went, no, without me even speaking. And
Wait,
that's not okay. Okay, for safety's sake, I get that. Like, when I worked at Song, there was no way I was going to go to Papua New Guinea because just the dynamic
yeah.
men
Well, no, I
element
totally
females
understand. Like,
can't
if you were
work.
traveling and if you were
I
going to
get
an
it.
area, yeah.
Like, I get it. There are cultural differences that make it less safe to be a woman working in certain places. I get that.
And same in India. And I'm not from India, meaning I am from India, but like I have never lived there and been a part of the people. But I can imagine, like they would probably have some issues for me going on the field in India. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I get that, but if that's not the reason, that's not a good reason. You know, like if it's not based on safety, then you have no leg to stand on. And
Justine,
that's
oh
something
my
you
God.
encounter in industry more often than not. Just based off your appearance, you're, you know, pushed.
Well, you've given me a lot to think about because it's like, when I grew up, I was very much a tomboy. So like, if you tell tomboy Pooja like at 10, like this is the way you're gonna dress when you're older, she's gonna be like, the fuck? No. But like, I go to career fairs looking. I think I look glitter, but like the pencil skirt, like or the tight dress and the blazer and like heels, but not like obviously not stilettos, but like the professional type, like in my head
Professional luck.
professional, but like,
Yeah.
and I guess when I think about it, it's very much business professional. Like if I was going into a restaurant for a manager job or a corporation, they would hire, you know what I mean? Like this would be a suitable.
Oh yeah,
So,
like Schlumberger, when I
so
interviewed, I was like
I'm wondering
at the
if it's
10.
just like an unspoken thing that like dress for the job you want, maybe like that's literally taking like.
No, okay.
So should
I
I
got a
dress up
good
in like my
example of that.
geology
Okay.
vest?
This
And
is
like,
my shoes.
but I'm wondering, but I'm wondering
Right?
if I wasn't like I've gone to so many career fairs, and I'm wondering if the recruiter, now that you say that, because I was and I wonder if they held back because of the color of my skin. So they were like, if we say this, like if we say, oh no, you can't work with us, they'll be like, we can't come off as racist. That's the whole big no.
No,
Yeah.
it's better to be sexist
It's
than
better than
racist,
sexist
obviously.
racist. Yeah. Well, yeah, right. And so I'm wondering, right? Because I've never.
As a woman recruiter, like she
Yeah.
worked there, she should have known
Yeah.
better, you know?
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm wondering is like I never had that blatantly stated to me, but I have dropped off my resume and talked to people with, field positions or even corporate or lab jobs for geology and consulting. And I'm wondering, and when you say that, I wonder if they just threw my resume in the trash because they're like, heels, dress, nope. Like,
I have point blank had people ask me
yeah.
why I was applying for jobs if I had a husband.
Ugh.
Yeah. And I'm like, because I like geophysics. Duh. Like, you would never ask that question to someone with a wife. Like,
And
it's
it's
just
harder. Yeah,
amazing.
and I get it too. And I felt that backlash, and not in industry because I haven't held any industry jobs, but I know with classes I felt this kind of, and frustration number 1,000 now, right? We're at, but
If
like,
you asked about frustrations, you
yeah,
get all of
you
them.
get all of them. Don't judge a book by its cover. Sometimes I feel like that's a valid statement for something.
Okay, I've seen people with flip flops in the field, and
Yeah.
probably that one
Yeah.
not so good.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that. My thing is like, I think don't judge a book by its cover is valid in certain aspects, but in certain things, sometimes it's like, don't judge a book by its cover until you've read the first couple chapters. Like,
At
you know,
least
like
the back
at
leaf,
least the
like
back
read
leaf.
the leaves of
Yeah.
it for
Just
God's
like,
sakes.
yeah, yeah.
So like I wore these. I did the shoe thing
Like
earlier.
tweakers in front of the gas station, I'm gonna judge a book by its cover and try to avoid them. Like I
So
know it
I
sounds bad, but like they're tweaking in front of the gas station. Like of course I'm not like I'm gonna judge a book
no,
by its cover.
obviously,
Yeah.
just you have to go through your gut or to your gut for like
Yeah.
dangerous situations. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say I wore these shoes to an interview one time
Okay.
because it was a field interview, not
Yeah.
Schlumberger, but
Yeah.
one of the tech jobs I worked.
Yeah.
And one of the guys interviewing me asked me, "Are those your field shoes?" And I was just like, "No, obviously not. Do these look like field shoes to you?" And I think there's just a certain amount of like looking at a person and trying to like instantly gauge what they're like, but it's not really useful when you're trying to hire people.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh man. And okay, again, another disclaimer for the viewers and listeners is just like I know this is very much event segment, and I mean these are our biases and these are experiences, and I hope it doesn't discourage people. Like if anything, it's us going through this and talking about it that helps make improvements.
Yes.
And we will tell you it's gotten better. And
It's
it will
gotten
get better.
better.
Yes, and
Like
it will
some
get
of these
better.
are isolated
Yeah,
incidents.
these are very isolated incidents, and you know, I don't systematically or not systematically, I don't day to day feel this. You know, I'm not subjected to this scrutiny every day. I if anything, and I guess we can get to the more positive part of this talk, which is the direction of of geology and STEM in general. But like, you know, I if anything, I felt more support than I have hindrance or frustration. And maybe it's a human thing that you focus on the frustrations more than the support. But I mean, I guess you have to tell people.
They might be isolated, but they're indicative of a larger problem.
Yes, you're right. Totally
Like
right.
not everyone's gonna actually tell you,
that.
you know,
Yeah.
hey, we don't want you working here because you're wearing a skirt, essentially. Like
Or like, or
because
in my case, it's like one we don't see a lot of Indian people. You'll just know, and maybe it's a women thing that we just know, or a person of color thing that we just know is body language, the way they talk to you, the way you know what I mean. Everyone else talks to you. It's just like it is so different, and you just know. And being through that all the fucking time, you can just see it as it is. You're
yeah.
being biased. You know, bias is not, you know, hidden. It's not, you know, it's to the point where it's so blatant. Like I can compare grades and see that a professor's being biased because they grade me harsher. You know, that's why I love doing homework with other people. By the way, professors, if you're listening to this, a lot of us do homework together. And so if you grade me, and this happened in class, I'm not going to say the professor. I was working with one of my friends with homework. We both got the same answer, you know, write it out similar ways. I get graded more harshly than the other person. And it's like, and it's just like, oh, come on. Like, you
Unconscious bias is totally a thing, and if
yeah,
you address it, then you can work on it. But you're not going to work on it if you don't address it,
yeah.
which is mostly what this vid session is about.
Yeah.
It's not just like shitting all over people that I've worked for or like professors we've had. It's just acknowledging that there are improvements to be made.
And so hopefully those who have been listening have been kind of getting that. We're so sorry. Well, no, but I think this is a good segue because it's like, where do you see, you know, in the more positive light, you know, you take these frustrations, but like for me, it's awesome that I have these frustrations because that means work is to be done. And so, where do you see yourself, not just yourself, but like also the direction of the entire geoscience community? Where, you know, 10 years from now, you look back and, you know, maybe even look back at this interview and you're like, wow, like, yeah, spot on.
Okay.
This is where I see. Yeah.
So when I went to my first AGU in 2011,
right,
there was no session on, at least not to my knowledge, not widely like publicized, on diversity and inclusion and fixing the
1,000 frustrations that we just went over.
Exactly. That did not exist. Or if it did, it was not widely publicized.
Yeah, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was 10 years ago. I went to AGU in December,
Yeah.
and this was front and center. And the year before, it was, well, year before I also went, and it was front and center. And these are things that the geology community and the geoscience community is starting to recognize, not only as existing, but being problematic. And I think that's a good first step to changing things for the better.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, I forget what I was just watching.
I think acknowledging is the first step.
Yes,
right?
yes. Just like most things, admitting you have a problem is a good start.
It's a good start, yeah.
And I just went to a webinar on this not that long ago, where they like Googled like a geologist and went to images, and it was like a white male in flannel, like hitting rocks with a hammer. And that is typically what people identify geology or geoscience as being. It's not always the case. And
well, not just that. Sorry, it's just like advertising that geology is more than field work. Like, you have lab positions, you have GIS, sit at computer, corporate hotshot corporate jobs.
Oh man, geophysics, geophysics, half the people that end up in geophysics, as far as I can tell, or that were in geophysics, end up doing computer programming.
Yeah.
They don't even stay in geophysics.
They don't even go in the field. And so for me, it's like, I love that mindset is changing, because people think, oh, you must be in the field all the time. You must be going out all the time. And like, yeah, I'm in the field all the time because I'm helping other people and I just like being outside. But like, that's not what and I mean, like, we can revisit the field camp frustration, but that's what I'm saying is like, that is not, geology is no longer mapping and being out. That's like such a 1960s view of things. But like, we are in a place where we have such great technology. We have overcome so many barriers in observation, chemical advances, physical advances, computational advances. And so geology is not, and I think there is something to be said about the importance of being out in the field. It is important, right?
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. Because if you're not like in the field at some point, then what are you doing?
Yeah, but like, even accessibility, to the field has changed drastically. Yeah. Like, and it's, people need to move with that. Yeah. And if you're stuck with this idea of what it is, then like, good riddance, because you're not coming with it. You need to either get on the boat or stay stranded on that island. Yeah. Because, sorry, continue.
No, it's important though. But the things are changing, hopefully, for the better. And I think if we can keep retention higher, because I think they said 50%, like it's a 50-50 split between geology graduates who are female and male.
That's good.
And that drops down significantly as you advance up the ladder. Yeah. So we got the foundation going, and then if you look at people in industry too, like, those numbers take a dive. But you have the foundation, right? You've got the fact that there are females interested in science. That's great. Like, we're doing something right if that's happening. It's just being able to retain people, and retention is going to depend on the future leaders. It's going to depend on the mentors in academia, as well as people outside of academia. And this isn't just a woman male thing. This is like diversity in general, like changing it from white male geologist to just geologist is going to take a little bit more effort. And I am optimistic about that, because I see a bunch of tenacious up and comers, basically. That's what you need to change things, is people who are willing to take on those leadership roles in academia, and people who are willing to start their own companies and hire people like who might not be your conventional.
I would say this and jump the gun on this confidently. I would confidently jump the gun on this, saying, like, I think Gen X and Millennial Or is it Gen Z? Which one's the one that's after us?
Gen X, and then we're millennials or Gen Y.
Okay, so our group and younger. Sorry, I don't know, but I think we're we're the grittiest generation.
I think we
think,
get a lot, we have a lot of allies in Gen X that
yeah,
should not be overlooked,
yeah.
because some of the like best mentors I've had are Gen X,
Which
and
one's Gen X again? Is that older or
Gen
younger?
X is like 19, it's post boomer, so anything after 1964 through 1979, I think.
I think yeah, there are allies in Gen X, but I think millennials and Gen Zers, sorry, there's a correction, are the grittiest and most persistent generation.
I am not going to say anything about Gen Z yet.
Well, not either. Well, I think
They're so young still. They haven't
very
even done anything.
true. Well, I mean, like
My own bias.
well, a lot of the graduates in undergrad are going to be Gen Zers, and for me to see that, and maybe my outlook, right, is social media and the platforms that are coming out on the internet. I think Gen Z has done just a phenomenal job in propagating good information. Obviously there's the bad information, but in the light, like, I think the most the best example I can do, right, is being cultured is cool now, right? Because and to me that's a Gen Z thing, is to show that we have families here that are first generation Native American, Asian American, or mixed families, and having that culture is cool and something you should hide. Something that as a millennial I wasn't able to have. As a Gen Xer, I bet none of them, a lot of them probably weren't able to have. Boomer, definitely not. So I think it's just, yeah, they eat Tide Pods and yeah, but I think there's also like that benefit, right? Like, yes, we have Gen X allies that are more of like the tough love. But
well, the Gen X, I only give them that extra credit because they're in the positions to make the lasting changes that Gen Z doesn't have yet, because they're still like in college.
Right.
Whereas the Gen Xers are getting those managerial roles now, and they've worked in industry 10 plus years, and they can what we need, in my opinion, is we need the allies who are in those positions of authority.
Right.
You don't want to just like ask for people to like give you the respect you deserve for existing, but like at a certain point, the people in authority are in the most probably likely position to actually propagate change.
Right.
And that's something that I have witnessed in industry and in academia, and I'm looking forward to how that changes the whole community basically of geoscience, and like starts to fix some of the like systematic problems that we're dealing with. Because I'm always looking forward to like how good things are going to be. Right. And that helps me through all the crappiness that you kind of put up with. But if you don't have to put up with it forever, that's even better.
Yeah. Or even just like putting up with it, but knowing that the people coming in after you will have it better. I think for me, it's the big reason why I do this. Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I stay in geoscience. So like when I got laid off, and I was basically like trying to figure out whether I should continue in geoscience or not, which sounds ridiculous to me like today, but it was something I genuinely had to soul search, because industry is cyclical. There's 7-year cycle for oil and gas. There's like 3 to 4 years for minerals. They were both down in 2015.
Right.
Oil and gas is down again, and I was just basically like, is this a stable enough thing to keep up with? And this is why a lot of geophysicists go into computer programming, is because it's not a stable thing. And I had to do a lot of soul searching to decide if it made sense to go through this torment over and over again, and if there were ways to improve it. And so I looked at leaving geophysics, not leaving geoscience, but leaving geophysics, and trying to like, maybe if I got an engineering degree, I'd be more marketable, or maybe if I did more geology. Because when when I graduated, I had my bachelor's in geophysics, but I had a minor in math, hydrogeology, and geology. So like I had a background, and I tried to establish of being more of a generalist. So I was thinking, well, maybe I should branch out a little, and maybe that would bring me more opportunities. But after soul searching, I went, no, I want geophysics to be as good as everything else is. You know, I want geophysics to have the same types of opportunities for people, and I want to change the mindset from the inside, which is a bold position to take. But one of the reasons why I applied for a PhD instead of a master's. So these are all things that like I am optimistic about in the future. As frustrating as the present can be, if people like me or like the people I've worked with that were really like good eggs and really like supportive, whether they were for like temporary internships, like at the Bureau of Rec or at UNAVCO, or if they were my full-time jobs like at Schlumberger and Sneha, like if we can change it for the better, that's what we really need, and that's what I'm really excited about. Foolishly, probably gonna get my hopes dashed, but it's what we need, you know, as a community of geoscientists.
I just realized I was muted. Sorry.
Oh,
No, I think it's foolish to believe that this is overnight change.
yeah,
And I think it's foolish to believe that you can change someone's mind overnight or like within a year. I think it's like it's promising that things are changing, but no, it's on the backs of people that have worked hard
yep,
and worked years
the
and
shoulders of giants.
yeah,
Yep.
and persisted. You know, I can't even speak to the level of work I've done because I've done shit. But like, you know, like I
Give
can,
yourself some credit, Pooja.
but like I see other people in my department, and I think it's like, we talked about our frustrations and personal life hindrances, and like, yeah, I can talk about the elitist mindset and how there's still work to be done, but like at the same time, I can acknowledge that there was a lot of change when they were going through all of it.
Yeah.
It's like a balance between acknowledging their what they had to go through, even though it may have better or worse. It doesn't matter, but like acknowledging that they had to go through something pretty difficult. They had to make their own changes while they're going through it. Now they're in a position where they have that ability to do it. And now you are in a place where you can help them do more. I'm just saying words at this point. I don't even know if that sentence
You're
makes
doing
sense.
great. I'm
Well,
following you. If you ever want to talk about that more, because like I didn't go into hardly any details
no,
on my
we're
work
like we're
history
like
or my academic.
we're running into like 3 hours now, so I
I
don't know,
know, I
and I
know.
still have to
I'm
edit
not saying
this.
today. I'm saying you, me, you want to
Yeah,
get coffee, we can do it.
okay, yeah, we can do that.